Thank you so much, President of Church. Again, I'm Amy Matizek, the Director of Communications. And first of all, as mentioned, for our first Elevate 38 recognition tonight, we are pleased to have the opportunity to honor coaches and students from our D38 Unified Basketball team. We applaud their accomplishment on and off of the court, and today we are going to recognize them for earning second place at the Special Olympics state competition. Woo. What I would like to do now is invite to the podium their coach, Coach Doan, along with all of the players who are here with us this evening. And Coach is going to share a few comments about the team, and then we will present certificates to the team as a whole, and then also for each of the players, and then we'll take a few photos with President Upchurch and Mrs. Wettstein. So Coach Doan, if you'd like to come forward, and then we also would like to bring up our players as well.
Good evening. I am proud to represent our unified basketball team this year. This is our 6th year as a district, also our first year taking second place at regionals and at state. I would like to introduce our coaches. We have Coach Amanda Huckstep, Coach Sue Timmer, Coach Joan Peterson. We have Coach Michelle O'Neill, Coach Evan Cochran is not here tonight, nor is Coach Lou Pastorello. However, they are happy for you all tonight. I should have had Christian announce all of this. And then I'd like to announce our players. We have a really good representation tonight, but tonight our team this year was the biggest team that we have had in the history of our team. We had I think almost close to 30 players this year. We had number 1, Janae O'Neill. Yay! Number 2, Aiden Evans.
Aiden!
Number 3, Caleb Schleeper.
Caleb!
Number 4, Emmeline Pilkington. Number 5, Kennedy Kirchhoffner. Number 10, Wynn Hammershock. Number 12, Josh Nadaho. Number 13, Bryce Hutches. Number 14, Tyler Biggs. Number 15, Josiah Molson. Number 20, Ian Fitzpatrick. Number 21, Andrew Grundle. Number 22, Michael Glenn. Number 23, Gage Evans. Number 24, Sean Fitzpatrick. Number 25, Christian Temmer. Number 30, Evan Parafiniak. Number 31, Avery Pilkington. Number 32, Isabella Cordova. Number 33, Eden Stanford. Number 34, Matthew Grundle. Number 35, Bryce Coyne. Number 40, Hill Mancini. And number 34, Tegan Korzanowski. Thank you to everybody and our best unified basketball team yet.
Woohoo! Can we get a picture? We got certificates for all of you students, and I really like your t-shirts. Those are pretty sharp.
Give the plaque. Let's bring a few players. How's that? You guys get them all in? Okay, and on the right-hand side, everybody squeeze in a little bit more. Will you kneel down too? You can see your friends in the back. Congratulations to this group.
And I understand we have some hungry athletes that are ready for dinner because they've also been practicing for track right now. So, congratulations. Okay, but we're not done yet. There's more. Amy Matizik, would you like to introduce our next recognition for staff and community for our Career Expo events?
I would love to do that, President Upchurch. Next, we're going to recognize individuals who played a big role in organizing and executing the recent Career Expo events at both of our high schools. I would like to bring to the podium now Robin Hudson from Lewis Palmer High School, and her counterpart, Angie Dawson from Palmer Ridge High School, is not able to be here tonight, but we are going to thank her as well. And then we also have with us representatives from the Her Society who contributed to this event, Sarah Colangelo and Bree Rekema, and we'd like to ask them to come forward at this time as well. So with these events, students had the opportunity to explore different career pathways and learn about workforce and educational choices for life after high school at these one-day events. And the Career Compass event at Lewis Palmer High School and then the Pathway Palooza at Palmer Ridge High School featured more than 100 business professionals, and students had the chance to attend sessions that aligned with their interests in a conference-style event. The two counselors, one of which Robin is here, were very instrumental in making the events happen. And then our community organization that's here, the Her Society, generously supported the event. We'd also like to give a shout out to the D38 Foundation because they helped facilitate, but we're gonna hold off because we're bringing them up for the third award tonight. So we'll honor them in a little bit, but also wanna make sure that we mention it's very important to note that Ms. Hudson and also Ms. Dawson were recognized by the Colorado Department of Education for their exceptional contributions to school counseling in general and were recipients of the School Counselor Corps grant. So to these counselors and also to our friends with the Her Society, we say thank you for helping us make these events worthwhile for our high school students. So I will give you each a brief moment to say anything you would like, and then we will present you also with a plaque.
Hi, I'm Robin Hudson, and I'm the post-secondary counselor at Lewis Palmer High School, and thanks for having us tonight in this award. It was our first time having this event at Lewis Palmer High School, and we're very thankful for our partnership with the Her Society. They were instrumental in not only planning, but also helping us get presenters and speakers, which were so important. So the feedback that we got was wonderful from the students, from the presenters. Students were really excited about it. It was really fun to hear all their stories just over the past couple of months about how now they want to be a physical therapist or a nurse or all the things they learned. So it was a great event. Palmer Ridge, it was their second time doing this event, so they had a little experience and it went great there too. So we thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to say I did not prepare anything, but we are beyond grateful for the opportunity to be in partnership with D38 Foundation and, with the schools. And it was awesome. It was really a community effort. We're so beyond grateful for our business owners that came together and, have that similar heart-centric mindset of wanting to pour into our youth and show that there are multiple career pathways. So we were very thankful for it, and it was great, and here's to next year. Let's do this.
So I have a student that's at one of the said high schools that reported that it was an amazing event, and we couldn't have done it without you and without our foundation as well. Thank you. But wait, there's more. So our third recognition for the evening, Ms. Matizik, you'll be introducing our D38 Education Foundation and their grant recipients from Ms. Stephanie Palskel, and take it away.
All right, thank you so much. So, as stated, we're going to move on and celebrate another community organization that is truly committed to D38 staff and students. And I just want to add that one of the first people that I met when I came to D38 last year was the executive director with the foundation, Stephanie Palskill, and very quickly I could see her passion for students and staff. So we are incredibly lucky to have her leading the foundation as well as all the other members that are part of that organization. And Stephanie tonight, in addition to thanking her, we would also like to thank the other board members in attendance, which include Holly Rollins. Their meaningful work includes many different programs, their Inspire grants, as well as their Advance grants, and also the Adopt D38 program. So tonight, what we are going to do is celebrate the foundation, but then also invite them to celebrate their most recent Advance grant winners. So at this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to our friends with the foundation, and they will introduce to you their Advance grant winners, and they will also help us pay a little more appreciation to another community organization, but I'll let them share who that is.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me and Holly here. Another integral organization that works with us on our advanced grant program is the Tri-Lakes Lions Club. Come on up. I feel, and the Board of Trustees for the foundation feels so fortunate to have the Lions Club supporting us in this program. This was something that we started talking about over a year ago, and we're quite excited that they were to be able to provide funds for our advanced grant recipients this year for reading intervention. And so it's been so amazing to see another local organization support our schools and be our partner. I couldn't ask for a better organization to support, so thank you guys so much.
Let's get a picture of you and the Lions Club and Ms. Upchurch. And let's sign.
He's kind of bad. Yeah, grab that. No.
Grab this?
Yeah, that's ours. Okay, so then it is also truly my honor to actually honor our staff that we got to have with these advanced grants. We were so fortunate to have 15 applicants, and we were able to grant 13 of our 15, which is so amazing. So we have a representative group of those folks here tonight. So when I call your name, if you could please come up. We have a certificate for you, and then we'd like to get your photo. First, Melissa Anderson from Lewis Palmer Elementary.
She's not here.
No, okay. Not a problem. Heather Boyd from Ray Kilmer. Thank you. Jackie Serbo from Lewis Palmer Middle. Hannah Dykes from Bear Creek Elementary. Diana Harris from Bear Creek Elementary. Melissa Lindeman from Lewis Palmer High School. And Nathan Norris from Prairie Winds Elementary. I don't know if Nathan's here either. Okay.
do the reading.
Do we have
Yeah.
comments?
Congratulations to all of our recipients. I get to the honor of sitting on the board as well, and it's always the requests and the purposes, and it's all so student-focused, and it's just so inspiring. So thank you, Stephanie, and thank you. Where's Holly? She left already. Well. And there's much more to come with our foundation, so lots of good things to come. Keep your eye out. Okay, moving to our item C4, public comments. Do we have any public comments? We do have public comments. Dr. Schenk, would you like to read our
Yes,
policy?
we'll do that. At this time, in accordance with policy BEDH, the board will hear comments from members of the public who have signed up to speak. It is our goal as a board to continuously listen and improve, and we invite members of our community to speak publicly for a total of 30 minutes. Speakers will be allotted up to 3 minutes each, and time may be divided equally if more than 10 individuals wish to speak. Groups with united concern may be asked to appoint a spokesperson. The Board of Education does not expressly or individually respond to public comments, and to this point, comments expressed do not represent the position or opinion of the Board of Education or D38. Finally, we ask that you keep comments shared appropriate for our PK through 12 audience and respectful at all times. Should you have an issue with a staff member that you would like addressed, please consider sharing these criticisms and concerns with the superintendent, who is responsible for supervising all staff and involving the board as needed.
Thank you. We have 3 public comments. The public comments will go for 3 minutes. There's a timer, and if you, for some reason, you go a little bit over, we'll give a little ding so that to wrap it up. And our first speaker is Mindy Derby.
All right. My name is Mindy, and I am a parent of 2 children who attend the Homeschool Enrichment Program, HSEA, here in District 38. I'm here with this evening to represent a group of HSEA parents, many of whom are present tonight. We are here to respectfully urge the board to make a decision regarding HSEA's future home. Parents are growing weary of the ongoing uncertainty, and we are concerned that continued delays will also negatively affect the success of our program. While we've been told that our program matters, the prolonged inaction speaks louder than words. Sadly, the credibility of the board and the district is beginning to erode in our eyes, and we often feel that HSEA is treated as an afterthought. Last Thursday, we met with Interim Superintendent Amber Whitsign and Melissa Andrews, along with the board members Tiffany Upchurch and Dr. Patty Schenk, to discuss our concerns in the future of the program. We found the meeting to be productive and encouraging, and we truly appreciated the time and consideration they gave us. During the discussion, we reviewed some of the options currently being considered for HSEA's future location. We would like to express our strong concerns regarding the possibility of combining HSEA with an existing district school. This would likely be another temporary solution. As the community enrollments develop, HSEA could again be displaced to accommodate other students. Sharing space would limit our ability to expand and would negatively affect unique aspects of our program, including the highly regarded PE. Some families travel from outside of their district, specifically for HSEA's program, because it stands out from the rest. Unless HSEA is housed in a completely separate and contained part of a building, there's a real potential for disruption between programs, as each follows a different operational schedule. Nationwide, homeschooling continues to grow in popularity every year. HSEA has had consistent growth over the last 5 years, and we're not just seeking success, we're pursuing growth. This program offers endless opportunities to students and families in our community, and we want to see it thrive. Based on the April 8th work session and our recent meeting, we would like to voice our support for the pod solution, which would provide 10 classrooms and a multi-purpose room. Pods would offer a dedicated, permanent home for HSEA, eliminating uncertainty and allowing the program to expand. Pods would also allow HSEA to maintain its current structure and schedule, providing stability for students, for families, and staff. Pods can be built and ready for placement within 120 to 160 days, minimizing the need to rely on Grace Best during the next school year. Most importantly, committing to a permanent solution like Pods would demonstrate that the board and district truly value and support the HSEA community. We understand the board's responsibility to carefully consider all options. However, continuing to delay a vote effectively keeps HSEA families in limbo as we plan for the upcoming school year. Thank you, and thank you for your time and considerations.
Thank you. Our next speaker, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jack Martin. Come on up, Jack.
Hello. My name is Jack Martin. I'm a student at Palmer Ridge. I just wanted to talk about like the language department at Palmer Ridge. I guess kind of just to start off, like, what do you think a proper education is like made up of? Obviously, it's not just math, English, or science. It's made up of social studies, you know, art, science, business, theater, and all of that is a part of like a proper education. And it's evident that Lewis Palmer School District values that, values the like view that a diverse education is important. As, I mean, like you guys said today, you guys have the new Career and Development Center that's coming along, I think next year, that will provide students with like new abilities or opportunities and skills that they can develop there, as well as like expansion of sports with like the renewed weight room, and also preparing students for college and like jobs beyond high school with college fairs and the Pathway Palooza that you guys mentioned today. But I just wanted to bring up like, but why is the language department oh my God, sorry.
You're fine.
Why the language department is getting left behind. In the past 2 years, I've had 2 Spanish teachers leave in the middle of the year, and last year I saw the language department get cut. So there's only now at Palmer Ridge only the first and second year of language is provided, with the rest of it being completely online. And I value language as a topic and subject in education, as my friend recently found their passion for language through the language system at Palmer Ridge. She found her passion and her desire to pick up international relations after high school. And it's because of Spanish that she found her passion, and because of Miss Ramirez, that was a previous Spanish teacher last year. But she left this March in the middle of the school year, and it's really disappointing, as I come from like a culturally diverse family. I grew up in China. Well, I was born in Colorado, so I first learned English here, but then I moved to China, so I was surrounded by people from all over the world and who speak Chinese and other languages. And then I lived in Malaysia, where it's again super diverse, like much like America, with like all the cultures, as there's Hebrew, Arabic, Malay, and also Asian languages too. So languages play like a really important part in my, I guess, upbringing and my culture. And it's really disappointing to see that the language department at Palmer Ridge is so cut, as having everything online kind of, it prevents the connection that's available. As when I first came to Palmer Ridge, I wanted to take Mandarin classes, as my mom speaks 3 languages. She speaks Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. So I feel bad that I couldn't like converse with her, since she was trying to learn English as she's becoming a nurse. So she wanted to practice her English. So I wanted to learn a new language, but I settled on Spanish because Palmer Ridge doesn't really provide that. But through Spanish, I was able to meet a lot of people, like the ELL kids who are learning English. And through Spanish and Ms. Ramirez, I was able to meet them, like learn about them and also connect with them. But yeah, I just would like, well, I understand there's like, oh my God, sorry.
It's okay.
But it's like extraneous circumstances, like the lack of teachers who can actually teach those languages, and obviously like funding and all that stuff. I just want to ensure that language is not going to get left behind, and there's going to be investment into the future. So
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thank you for your passion for language, too. Yeah. Well done. It's not always easy to get up there and speak, but thank you, sir. Okay, Greg and Chelsea Plinkett.
You can if you want. Hi, I'm Chelsea Plunkett. My husband's Greg Plunkett. We are residents in the Monument area. We've been here for roughly 3 years. And during that time, I've had experience with the HSEA program, and I just want to speak to how much importance the program has brought to our lives. We don't have kids currently, and prior to moving up here, we were very much a public school all the way kind of family. And not that we're against public school, but I will tell you, having the opportunities to share time with the homeschool program has really opened our eyes to that homeschool is very important. It opens a lot of opportunities for families that may not get in the public school. We've had customers of ours that speak about homeschool opportunities where they take kids on road trips, and that's their active learning. And so just as a community member, we really wanted to put back in front of you of just how important this homeschool program is, and making a decision for a home for them is very important as well. This kind of pass off, kind of just, they'll figure it out, is really got to stop somewhere. And I appreciate y'all taking the lead of putting that buck down and doing something. It just sounds like there's still a lot of hesitation and concern about that home. And as community members and planning on being here for a long time, we would like to see that place get established so they can make a home and they can grow. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for speaking and sharing. Appreciate it a lot. It does mean a lot, and us board members do listen. Okay, those are our 3 public comments. At this time, we will move on to our board member comments. Mr. Brown, you are on the phone, but if you want to make a comment or if you would like to pass, it's up to you, sir.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Shank?
Okay, so I attended PCAC, which is the Parent and Community Advisory Committee for D38, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, and then I've got just a couple more comments. During that meeting, I discussed with the PCAC members how Melissa Andrews and Brett Ridgway are continuing to narrow down options for our transition program and our HSEA. The board recently asked them to review a few additional options to make sure we have both an efficient and an effective solution. And you'll hear a report from them tonight to explain what the options are. And are we voting on those tonight?
Potentially.
Okay, potentially. Okay. I also had a discussion with PCAC members about our internal superintendent search and the role they had, along with the staff collaboration committee, as well as many other individuals who reached out to us, the role they had in helping us come to the conclusion that an internal search would serve us best. Our superintendent search has begun with accepting applications and with the help of Alicia Welch, our D38 HR director. There will be many meetings and other opportunities to get involved with the search and have your voice heard, and we want to hear your voices. Please keep in touch with these efforts by reviewing the superintendent's search activities on the D38 website, and we very much want your input. We also heard a presentation from Dr. Michael Brahm on the actions for Priority 2, academic excellence related to D38 accreditation and potential legislative changes that may impact us. And you'll hear this presentation tonight. Other comments. I attended the awards ceremony for the District Visual Arts show last week, and I was blown away. Not only am I not artistic, but the stuff that was shown by the kindergartners, I didn't think I could do. But I got chills from all of the winners and the kids themselves. They ran from kindergarten through high schoolers, and the art was phenomenal. I hope that some of you got the chance to go to Lolly's and see it in person. And I heard it was so busy in Lolly's to see it because it was so amazing. And we had it wasn't just our own public school kids, it was Monument Academy and HSEA kids as well. And just the art was just amazing and makes me want to live again so that I can learn how to close a circle and not have it be in the wrong place. I got to also put names to the faces of our art teachers, and I hear about them when we go through the schools. I hear about the art teachers because they're pretty universally loved. And they were amazing as well. I also want to thank the sponsors of the show because we really can't make some of these outside events happen very well without community support, and it's really a big, big deal. And I also want to tell our HSEA and transitions families that we are not dropping the ball. I promise you we are pushing. Government works slow, and we have meetings once or twice a month. And a lot of times what they're really waiting for is our meetings for us to vote. That's just the process. Sometimes I think it would be better if we had 10 meetings a month and then nobody would run for school board. So that wouldn't be good either. But as I've told HSEA folks, I homeschooled my son through most of middle school, and I'm a strong proponent of diversity of education for our kids, and who knows better than parents, and let the parents have the diverse options they need for their kids. I'm done.
Mr. Norris.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like to elevate some great success stories over at the children at Monument Academy. So starting off, the elementary school just finished celebrating Pueblo Town. Students earned Nero bucks throughout the semester by achieving or exhibiting positive character in Spanish class, and this culminated in students attending the Pueblo Town celebration, where they visited the bank, post office, theater, and other stores. The students were challenged on their Spanish vocabulary in different games to win prizes. The event ended with a wonderful puppet show connected to the learning that has been taking place this semester. It was a fun way for students to engage in learning. The middle school Match Wits team swept the CCAL League competition, with Monument Academy teams taking the top 3 spots. Middle school drama departments have been working hard to ensure their productions are top-notch. The middle school put on James and the Giant Peach, and it's always amazing to see the level of excellence the middle school students achieve. The high school is putting on the Little Shop of Horrors, and with most of the creation of the show being student-led, it has been fun to observe the display of leadership by the high school students. So good job to the folks over at Monument Academy. They're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schwartz.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. As everybody knows, I am often long-winded with my public comments, and tonight is no exception. I actually tried to parse it down, but there's just so much to celebrate. It's always at the end of the school year that there's a lot. So I wanted to start off by giving my heartfelt condolences to the town of Monument and to the family and friends of Mr. Jim Romanello. Jim had vision, initiative, a servant's heart, and a heart to serve God. And he loved this community, and he often shared his enthusiastic support for our students and our staff and our school district to myself, and he does leave a legacy that will be continued. So I just wanted to say that and acknowledge that. I also wanted to share that there are just 3.5 weeks left to the end of our school year. And there has been so much to celebrate, and so I want to try to capture a few of those things that I attended and witnessed. I want to also say a hearty congratulations to our winners at the D38 Art Awards, and also a special thanks to the lead organizer, Amanda Stamen, who's an art teacher at Palmer Lake Elementary School. And I enjoyed the performances and the spotlight at our multilingual night at Lewis Palmer High School. It was one of the best I've attended. And I learned that there are 40 different languages. To your point, Jack, there are 40 different languages spoken here in D38. I also want to recognize there's so much, from strings at state to our students, but with those accomplishments, one of the things I wanted to share was I've been following our Barebotics team. And I just want to share how far they have come from their very, very humble beginnings when they were just called Aperture Robotics in a little room at Palmer Ridge High School to where they are today. And I want to personally congratulate them. They won regionals in Oklahoma, and then they went on to compete in Worlds in Texas this past weekend. So while we were all enjoying our Easter celebrations, they were competing in running robots. And our Barebotics team made it to the playoffs in Worlds with an impressive record. They ranked 82nd out of 3,690 teams worldwide, and that's the top 2.2% in the world. They also ranked 63rd out of 2,927 teams, which is the top 2.2 in the United States. They have a state ranking of 2 out of 36. They are the #1 autonomous EPA in Colorado and #1 teleop EPA in Colorado. And they all represented our community with dignity, maturity, camaraderie, and the life skills that these students learn and glean is top-notch. And with their growth, their learning, their collaboration, networking, engineering, problem-solving, and the sense of belonging that they get on the robotics team, that experience is invaluable, and I can't wait to witness how much 4068's program and outreach and opportunities are going to continue to grow once they are in their new home at the Innovation Center and what potential awaits them. I also want to say a congratulations to Palmer Lakes Elementary's Michelle Miller for being recognized by KOAA as April's Teacher First recipient. And speaking of teachers, I want to remind everyone that coming up May 5th through the 9th is Teacher Appreciation and Staff Appreciation Week. And there are so many ways in which we can share our heartfelt gratitude to our D38 educators, including our transportation department, as I mentioned. And they give their all day, every day, almost every day, in and out. And their dedication and passion shows in the excellent education that our kids receive here in D38. And we can all remember a teacher that made a difference in our lives, and some of those teachers are actually still teaching today. And so I just wanted to remind everybody to reach out and say thank you and show your gratitude to our educators who truly desire to serve and reach and teach every student every day. But also I want to remind everybody that it's our responsibility to ensure that your children are learning in a safe and welcoming environment. And with so many opportunities in education for parents and guardians to choose, I'm grateful that you all choose us. And it is a testament to our educators and also the value that we place on our partnerships with our parents. And the key to student success is that parents are actively engaged in their children's education. And I think D38 really truly partners with our families, our staff, our community to ensure that our students are indeed our priority. And it really is about every student every day. And to that end, with every deliberation and every decision we as board members engage in, we have to keep that at the forefront of our mind. From the budget to the buildings, from our Title I school to our STAR program that serves our young students on the spectrum, from our preschool classrooms to our transitions, that serves our 18 and 21-year-olds, from our homeschool enrichment students to our charter school students, and even our students that excel in different arts and sports and clubs and activities in academia. Each of our schools and each of our programs in this district is important, and when we make our decisions, we need to be cognizant of serving our students first. And I say this for a reason. First, I want to remind everyone that we will have 2 seats on the ballot this year, Director District 1 and Director District 3, and we'll be hosting an Engage and Elevate information session here in Big Red on May 1st for anyone wanting to know how to run and what being a board member entails. And second, I want to remind everybody that this Thursday is our Aliorum Day Awards. That is from 7 to 9 o'clock at Palmer Ridge High School. And this is an evening where we celebrate and lean into those that help and serve our differently abled students in different and extraordinary ways. So I would like to invite everybody to come to that. Third and last, I want to remind everybody that April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and it's also Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month. Both deserve our attention year-round. As proclaimed by the White House, America's children are the foundation of our families, the heirs of our freedom, and the stewards of our national promise. And as citizens, each of us is entrusted with the sacred responsibility of caring for the most vulnerable among us, especially children uniquely at risk of trauma and abuse. And I also want to thank the town of Monument that did a proclamation announcing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I like what they said when they said the best proclamation they said in it is, every child in our community deserves to be valued, nurtured, protected, so they can grow into healthy, thriving individuals. Every child is entitled to feel safe, secure, and loved. And as I mentioned, Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month is also right now. And when I'm termed off this board, I pledge that I will never stop advocating and fighting for our neurodiverse individuals. Please seek to get perspective about those who interact and seek the world from a different perspective. Every person, every child across the globe is on a wide spectrum, and they're human beings. And autism should not be a polarizing political topic. And it actually saddens me that we're not unifying for a desire for deeper learning and understanding and appreciation of the gifts that come with life on the spectrum. My family in particular chose D38 for the incredible resources and support that it pours into our students, and it is a district that strives to partner with parents and see the gifts of every unique student, which in turn has indeed led to the success of my own student. So I want to say thank you again to our educators, to each and every one that has touched the lives of all students, and I would also like to just share a few thoughts about autism. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Albert Einstein. What would happen if autism gene were eliminated from the gene pool? You would have a bunch of people standing around in a cave, chatting and socializing and not getting anything done. If I could snap my fingers and be non-autistic, I would. Autism is part of who I am. Temple Grandin. Normal is just a drier setting. Patsy Claremont. And finally, if you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism. I may be a little different, but aren't we all? One of my beloved Palmer Ridge High School graduates. That's what I have to share today.
Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our Lewis Palmer High School student representatives this evening. And when I learned which students would be attending the meeting, I was very excited because I have had the pleasure of getting to know both Jonathan Lilly and Marin Strickrath in many different settings over the course of the last couple of years. So welcome to these two outstanding students. First, I'll introduce Marin. She's a senior at Lewis Palmer High School, and she plans to attend the University of Colorado Boulder in the fall to study business and pre-dentistry. She was a varsity cheer captain this year, as well as the student body vice president and the president of Drama Club. She performed at Colorado All-State Choir this year and is also a member of the National Honor Society. And then Jonathan is the junior class secretary at Lewis Palmer High School for the Student Council and also a member of the National Honor Society. He received the one-act play Outstanding Lead Performer Award and has performed with the Colorado All-State Choir as well. So welcome to both of you. And I believe they have a presentation to share with you this evening. So Ms. Wood will pull that up for you.
Thank you for having us. We just wanted to give a quick presentation about what our student council has been working on and just kind of what the happenings are at Lewis Palmer High School right now. First, I just want to highlight our Make-A-Wish week. This was back for our snowball dance, and it was just a really, really successful week. We raised $17,000, which is the most money that we've ever raised for Make-A-Wish, in a long partnership that we've had with them. And what was really special to me was that we were able to have our Wish Kid come in for an in-person experience. So you can see those pictures are us hanging out with Harper, who is the daughter of one of our hockey coaches, and so she's just very local to our school and our community. And so I think it really connected the entire student body to have her come to the assembly and just really see what they were donating towards. So just wanted to give that a quick highlight.
I'm also very happy to announce that Lewis Palmer High School Student Council for the second year in a row has qualified for National Gold Council of Excellence by the National Association of Student Councils. So us, along with 22 other councils from Colorado, have been marked as gold through our showing of student voice and our partnership along with other organizations such as the Make-A-Wish Foundation and many other criteria that we had to fit.
And then kind of finally coming up this week is our prom week, and we are super excited. It's at a different venue this year, and you can kind of see the theme is Starlight Circus, so that's coming up on Saturday, and we are very excited and have had a great year thus far at Lewis Palmer. So, thank you.
And we're going to release the students this evening at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So if we forget, just give us a little wave and we'll make sure that we get you out of here at a decent time this evening.
Thank you, Maureen and Jonathan, for joining us. And congratulations. Graduation's right around the corner. And we look forward to seeing Jonathan at this spot again this year, next year, hopefully, right?
Look forward to that as well.
Excellent. Ms. Wetstein.
I have a clicker? Or, okay, well, thank you to the board for highlighting some of the exciting happenings going on across the district this month. Vicki will pull that up. I'll start. There's a lot of photos. Okay. The District Art Showcase was mentioned, and I also want to shout out Amanda Stamen from Palmer Lake Elementary for coordinating this fabulous 2-week event highlighting our student artwork. It was a wonderful event. We took a break from it for a variety of reasons last year, and we're so grateful that we were able to bring back this wonderful event this school year. And as was mentioned, the D38 robotics team won big at the Oklahoma Regional. Our robotics team had an unforgettable experience at the Oklahoma Regional competition. They came home event winners for the second time ever, and then it was on to the championship in Houston. At the World Competition in Texas, the team finished number 14 out of 75 teams. Congratulations to our robotics team. We are incredibly proud of your efforts. Prairie Winds Elementary School and Palmer Lake Elementary School recently hosted living museums. They brought history to life with their living museum projects. Students at Prairie Winds took on the roles of passengers and crew aboard the iconic Titanic, and Palmer Lake students showcased pioneers exploring the Oregon Trail and life on the frontier. All students did an amazing job demonstrating creativity, presentation, and critical thinking skills. Lewis Palmer High School Theater performed Percy Jackson's The Lightning Thief. Ranger Theater brought the world of Greek gods and modern teens to life with this high-energy musical adaptation of this hit novel. Our theater students are incredibly talented, and we thank them for sharing this professional production with our community. And Bare Necessity Theater presented a powerful drama, Radium Girls, set in 1926, where our students dove into the true story of young women who challenged a powerful corporation. The drama placed a light on the cost of progress, the strength of those who speak out, and the courage it takes to stand up for what's right. Congratulations to the entire cast for a job well done. 55 fifth graders across the district showcased their literary knowledge, answering questions about 40 books in the Battle of the Books in a fun and competitive reading event on April 4th. All of the teams advanced to the regional competition at Colorado College on April 17th, and I'm happy to report that Team 1 from Lewis Palmer Elementary School captured first place, and they only incorrectly answered 3 questions all day. Pretty incredible. Congratulations to the winning students, and thank you to Kelly Parks, Library Media Specialist at Lewis Palmer Elementary School, who leads coordinating the contest for our students. As we celebrated tonight, on March 19th, the Monument Warriors and D38 Unified Team lit up the court in a fun and spirited game and met many of these players during our Elevate 38 Awards presentation this evening. There were pep bands, cheer squads, guest refs, and a great crowd. It was a celebration of teamwork and inclusion. We also honored seniors with varsity letters for their dedication and impact. In athletics, D38 students excel not only in academics, but also in athletics. We continue to see our student athletes perform well regionally and nationally. Last week, we had more than 20 students sign to play their sport at the collegiate level. Congratulations to these athletes, their coaches, and their parents too. We can't wait to see what they accomplish playing college sports. And also, as mentioned earlier this evening, our multilingual families and staff who support them gathered on April 17th to celebrate and enjoy camaraderie with games, food, and ballet folklorico performance at our multilingual family night. It was quite a sight if you were able to see it, the beautiful costumes and beautiful dancing. With families in D38 from a variety of ethnic backgrounds, the event provided an opportunity for us to show our appreciation and support for everyone in D38. Next, we'd like to share some kudos for our staff. We continue to receive kudos submissions via our website for staff and volunteers who are appreciated in D38, so we encourage all of you to submit kudos so we can celebrate those who go above and beyond. Staff in the music department at Bear Creek are appreciated for the support of their amazing PTO. Staff at Lewis Palmer Elementary would like to thank their PTO for organizing activities and providing meals throughout the year. Our high school counselors would like to thank Leslie Boyce from the Technology Services Department for helping with their career exploration events. Erica Hall Gonzalez received a kudo for her unwavering support of students, families, and colleagues. And the team at Lewis Palmer Elementary would like to thank Kelly Parks again for her endless support for the District Battle of the Books event. Lastly, we'd like to share some details about an exciting upcoming district-wide event. Our entire community is invited to join us for a restoration celebration honoring the historic restoration of Kilmer Elementary's old schoolhouse. It's been beautifully brought back to life thanks to an Eagle Scout project and generous community support. The event will feature a short ceremony, historic-themed activities, and food trucks. We hope everyone will join us to celebrate our past and those who are helping preserve it for the future. That's my update for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wetstein. It's a little one-room schoolhouse. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. We're moving on to our discussion items, and our discussion item number 1 is Priority 2 update with academic excellence. And at this time, I would like to please invite Dr. Brahm and Ms. Griebenow to the podium to present our update. And Dr. Schenk, I believe you are the board liaison involved in the work of this strategic plan priority. Good evening. How are you this morning? Or gosh, see, I'm ready for tomorrow. This evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're going to jump right in here with the Strategic Priority 2 Academic Excellence Update. When we get to the second slide, we'd like to take a look at who is serving on our committee and acknowledge those who are, acknowledge those who are part of this work. For some of us, we've been part of this work for multiple years. This year we had Dr. Patty Schenk join us, along with Mr. Colin Vinchattel, who is the Monument Academy Executive Director as well. Dr. Schenk, if there's anything you would like to chime in at any time, please feel free to do so. Welcome aboard.
Before Ms. Griebenow and Dr. Brahm jump in, I just want to personally thank them for stepping up and taking more of a leadership role in this priority work. As I've assumed some additional responsibilities, they've really taken the ball and have run with it with all of the action planning we are doing around Priority 2.
Thank you.
Dr. Brahm really is the champion for Priority 2. And I feel very fortunate that I get to work with him on this, this priority in our strategic plan. So I helped with the first of 3 measures in this part of the plan. And it has to do with ELA. I'm obviously the district reading specialist, so that would be my wheelhouse. And we are seeking to obtain, and then once we obtain, maintain academic achievement in language arts. And we're going to measure that in 2 ways. We're going to measure it by the 85th percentile in DIBELS, and we're going to measure it by the median growth percentile of 50 on the District Performance Framework, which is also known as the DPF. And we have given ourselves 3 years to accomplish this goal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the at least 85% of 3rd graders exit 3rd grade at benchmark on the DIBELS assessment. And DIBELS is in all capital letters because it stands for the Dynamic Indicator of Basic Early Literacy Skills. It is a universal screener that we give every K-3 student in our district to see how they are learning the process of reading. Different than NWA. NWA is more of a product of reading, how reading comprehension works. DIBELS is really, do they have phonemic awareness? Do they have decoding abilities? What does their vocabulary look like? Are they fluent readers? And so we measure our K-3 kids on a variety of sub-skills within that assessment. And then that helps principals work with their students to plan intervention and core instruction with their kids. Next slide. So in order to achieve this, we start big picture and then we get granular in some of the work that we're doing. So one of the first things that we did as a result of the CLSD grant that we received from CDE 4 years ago, one of those mandates that we were given was we were to create a literacy framework and also create a comprehensive local literacy plan. And in that literacy plan, it spells out what we do at each level from birth to preschool, from kindergarten to 5th grade, and then from 6th grade to 12th grade. And so part of our action steps for this year were to evaluate and improve core literacy resources. So we assembled a K-5 ELA curriculum review team, and we looked at the 2 core resources that we currently have in our district. So we have Benchmark and we have CKLA, the 2nd edition. And that team did a lot of great work around what should be within a structured literacy block. And a structured literacy block is somewhat prescriptive in that we want to say that we're going to address the 5 components of reading, which are phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. The other thing that we worked on this year was strengthening the intervention. So if you think about the multi-tiered system of student support, Tier 1 would be our core. Tier 2 would be those students who fall just a little bit below core and need some extra support. Tier 3 would be students who are at least 2 years behind in their proficiency of reading. And so one of the things that we did at the secondary level is we implemented a program called Read 180. And there is really positive data that has come out of our middle school. In that respect, Alexi Seaborn and Lisa Morgan have really been champions at that level to support kids. And that data was just shared at a desktop review with CDE this afternoon about how great that is working there. We are also implementing it at the 2 high schools. Palmer Ridge High School has got a teacher who's really taken and run with it. At Lewis Palmer High School, we're looking more about, do we have the right staff? Do we have the right kids? Do we have the right support? So that will be ongoing work. At the elementary level, we had 6 teachers who volunteered to be part of a SIPS pilot, and SIPS stands for Systematic Instruction in Phonemic Awareness, Phonics, and Sight Words. Don't you love all those acronyms? And so that is a very explicit instruction-led program for kids who are considered to be Tier 3 in 2nd grade through 5th grade. We've also collected data on that using our DIBELS assessment to measure the growth of those kids. So we're getting ready to collect end-of-year data because the DIBELS window actually opens next week and closes May 11th. So we'll have data on those kids who have been part of that pilot. And then the other thing that we are doing, which part of what the CLSD grant paid for, was the 7 steps to a language-rich classroom. Why does it fit under literacy? Because when you think about how reading starts with oral language, it's reading, it's speaking, it's writing, it's listening. All those things fall under the Colorado Academic Standards under the area of literacy. So we have supported that work through the CLSD literacy grant with that as well. That was a lot. Okay, what's in progress is we are still working on defining and refining what literacy plans look like. Big work is to align the resources that we have, make sure we have great resources, highly effective resources, and aligning those, particularly sometimes the breakdown can often occur between the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 because a lot of times we have teachers who provide the core instruction, which would be Tier 1, and intervention teachers who provide the Tier 2 instruction. And do we have the right programs for kids? Do we have the right support to teachers? And so part of the ELA team, we did work on phonemic awareness and adding a program called Hegarty across our buildings, which most buildings were already doing that, but we've now put it into our literacy plan. And why do we add Hegarty? Because phonemic awareness, 95% of kids who older struggling readers, their issues can be tracked back to phonological awareness. So it's can they hear all the individual sounds and produce those and recognize those in print. And so we want to make sure that that is strong in our K-1 classrooms. We also want to establish an ongoing assessment and monitoring of progress of those kids. So we now have a district-wide progress monitoring calendar. We do regular DIBELS data collection. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing evaluations on the SIPS, the Read 180, and those programs that we are piloting. And then finally, we work on the professional development because I, along with a lot of people in our leadership team, believe that we develop our best capacity with training teachers and equipping them with best practices, that curriculum programs and intervention cost a lot of money, but it never replaces what an effective teacher can do with a child. Okay, data. So I think Dr. Brum and I are going to share this. So if you first want to talk about the CMAS and SAT data, then I'll jump in on DIBELS.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Grabenow. When we look at outcome measure data number 1, I think it's important to note that for the DPF, or District Performance Framework, the E and the M and the H represent elementary, middle, and high. And when we look at the District Performance Framework, if we refer back to what Mrs. Grabenow had referenced with regard to DIBELS and having 85% of our students at or above grade level, that also is in alignment with how that is measured in state assessment data. Right now, what we're looking at is state assessment data for English achievement. This is CMAS, PSAT, SAT. So for elementary and middle school, that's going to be CMAS data. And then for high school, that's going to be PSAT and SAT data. And for the district performance framework, there are 4 different categories or 4 levels of how achievement is measured. It's exceeds, meets, approaching, and does not meet. And the 85th percentile is what is necessary to be at the exceeds category. So we're right there if you look at the high school, and middle is very close to 85th percentile. This is 2024, and elementary was at the 88th percentile. When we look at growth data, you notice that there's a line at the 50th percentile because that is in line with the goal that we had talked about earlier, or Mrs. Grebe and I had talked about earlier with our DIBELS. And when we look at our CMAS English Language Arts growth results, that 50th percentile is our goal. And one of the pieces of data that's not up there is the elementary cohort, the elementary grouping, the middle school grouping, and the high school grouping. So when we look at our elementary schools with regard to CMAS ELA growth for 2024, it was collectively at the 59th percentile. The middle school, which is a combination of MA secondary, grades 6, 7, and 8, and our LPMS students, grades 7 and 8, that is the 41st percentile. And then the high schools, that was 53rd percentile. And we'll look at that here in well, let's back to end of year DIBELS results. So with the end of year DIBELS results, the 85% of students are at or above benchmark is our goal. Would you like to speak to those three?
So we get really close in kindergarten, and if you're wondering why do we go from 84% at benchmark to 82 to 77 to 73, it goes back to talking again about aligning the core resource or tier 1 with tier 2 in particular, because often what we do is we want to put kids into a different program in tier 2 instead of just giving them more repetition of core 1 or tier 1. So that is professional learning, I believe, for teachers that needs to come along the way. The other thing that happens between 2nd and 3rd grade is students start to encounter multisyllabic words, more complex sentences. And so if they are lacking in decoding skills or if they're struggling with phonemic awareness, that's going to dip down a little bit in 3rd grade. But Louisa Moats, who is a national literacy expert, made a statement, a bold statement many years ago that said 95% of our students are capable of reading at benchmark. And when I think about the population of students, the parent support, the teacher expertise that we have in this district, 85% is certainly more than achievable for us when we start to get those resources aligned, those teachers trained, and what it looks like from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3.
So now we'll move on to outcome measure 2, which is obtaining and maintaining academic achievement in math at the 85th percentile and at least a median growth percentile of 50 on the DPF or District Performance Framework by 2027. So these are some of the things that we're working on currently in 2024-25. The first thing that we're looking at is evaluating and improving K-12 math instruction. This is with regard to programming resources, assessments, and scheduling. And I'm going to couple that with the second bullet, which is ensuring standards-aligned instruction. So one of the things that we're doing right now, in addition to the K-5 ELA review for curriculum, we're doing the same thing for math as well. And we're looking at our resource, we're looking at how well it aligns to standards. And in addition to that, we are also looking at getting ready to look at grades 6 through 8 next year. So we're trying to scaffold this vertically, so the work that we do this year is going to feed into 6-8 next year as well. With regard to assessments, we are currently looking at, well, actually, we're wrapping up CMAS testing this week, so that's one thing that we are in the midst of. And with regard to our district-wide assessment, which is MAP growth, this year, one of the things that we did differently is we looked at how that impacted our school year last year, because last year we did state assessments at the end of the school year, followed by MAP growth going into the middle of May, which was a hardship for a lot of people, both students and staff. So this year we moved MAP growth to just before spring break and gave our students and staff a little bit of a break. We are going to be looking at that going forward because in July of 2025 there will be new norms for MAP growth. We also are looking at our areas where we're having a success, whether that be at the school level, the classroom level, the course level, and we have a lot of things that we can celebrate district-wide. And when we get to our math data, you'll see that we have some work to do, but there has been a renewed focus around math this year to complement the focus that we've had in literacy in recent years. We're also looking at alternative course options, which going into the next school year with the Innovation Center, that's going to be one thing. We actually are going to be adding a College for Liberal Arts course in the fall. So students will be able to take that course at the high school level and get college credit for that. We are also working with our GT facilitators and higher order thinking. We have seen in recent years that our accelerated numbers in math in particular have been declining. And so there could be a variety of factors there. And so we're doing some root cause analysis going into next year. And then ensuring that we have equitable math placement for students. One of the things that I think is really important, and I'm speaking as a former math teacher at the secondary level, it's really important that our students are in the right courses to set them up for success. And we're working with all of our high schools on that, and also looking into our middle schools and our elementaries to make sure that we are setting our students up for success, not just for the current year, but in years ahead. We've already talked a little bit about refining the math resources. One of the things that we're working with our math curriculum committee on is not only alignment of our standards to our current resource, but also ensuring that the resources that we provide in our curriculum map are aligned to state standards and that they are viable and high quality resources. In the coming months, we're going to be working on a comprehensive PK math plan, and that's something that I will be spearheading with the support of staff. And using data to drive decisions. I think one of the things that in my role as a director of assessment, it's easy to look at data after the fact and the outcomes, but it's really what we do with that data that gives it value. And there is value in the data that we have for both MAP growth and also for CMAS and PSAT and SAT. And then looking at our top performing teachers, we have a lot of high quality instruction occurring throughout the district, and we need to replicate that and we need to celebrate that because people are working very, very hard, our staff and our students, and we need to recognize that. And then providing collaboration and alignment opportunities for our staff. I know that that's something that is at the forefront of our work for next year. We need to make sure that staff have an opportunity to work with grade level peers and also vertically working up and down above and below grade levels. And establishing clear math pathways and placement. And that goes back to some of the course offerings that we're going to be adding and also making sure that our students are set up for success by being properly placed in their math courses. So here's some of the data. And if you think back to what we looked at in terms of ELA, 85th percentile for achievement is still going to be the benchmark here. And in 2024, we were very close for elementary and middle school, and we were at the 81st, and then at the high school, we were at the 85th. For the growth, for CMAS growth, 50 is the benchmark, and we do have some success here. We also have opportunity for improvement. I think it's important to note, as I noted for ELA, that when we look at elementary was the 49.5 percentile for growth. Middle school was 41.5, and high school was 52nd. One of the things that I want to point out about the elementary being at 49.5 is that that's a median value. And just to show how important our students' work is when it comes to taking these assessments, for a median, that difference between 49.5 and being at the 50th percentile could actually boil down to one student on one unit on one question. That could be the difference between being at the 49.5 percentile and the 50th. It can come down to a single question. So any students that we had at the 49th percentile for growth last year had one student gotten one more question right, we would have been right there at the 50th. So I think it's really important. It's just a good reminder that what we do each and every day matters, both as instructors and also as learners, because we're in this together. Anything you'd like to add? Yeah, with that part. All right, let's move on to outcome measure 3.
You want me to jump in? You start and I'll.
All right, okay. So outcome measure 3, we're working on maintaining a 3-year rolling average local matriculation rate of at least 95% by 2021. And when we look at this, there's going to be a visual later that will help this make more sense, but at this time I would like to turn it over to Mrs. Wetstein, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. All of this outcome is around preparing our students for success after high school. And so we've talked a lot with the board and with our planning teams on all the ways we can provide students choices so that they are pursuing their passions and are demonstrating readiness for life after high school. So some of the things we're doing currently, we've talked a lot about the Career and Innovation Center. We've launched the Student Enterprise this year. We saw celebrations of the Career Exploration Fairs this evening. But we're also adding pathway options for students. One of the things Ms. McAllister is working on with schools is revitalizing the individual career and academic planning process, or the ICAP process, and we are continuing to pursue additional opportunities for students to earn college credit. There was also a graduation requirements task force that met throughout the year, and we're continuing to refine our policies and procedures in that regard. If you want to click to the next slide. All of these are still in progress, but in the executive content of board docs, you'll see the details of the action planning for both 2024-25, but also for the next 2 years to come. As we move into outcome measured data, this is a slide we've shared several times in the past. When we look at how the state measures matriculation, that is the graphic to the left. Under current legislation, students who earn college credit in high school do not count towards this metric. They would have to demonstrate that they are attending a college class after high school, and actually the year immediately after high school. So as a community, we have decided to calculate our local matriculation rate, which does incorporate those other measures of student success, demonstrating their readiness for life after high school. And you can see on the right-hand side, we have nearly 100% of our students demonstrating that readiness.
If I may add, I think it's really important to note that the data on the right-hand side paints a broader and more accurate picture of what is happening with our students, and it is more timely data. One of the disadvantages with the data on the left is that is beyond high school, and so we are kind of at the mercy of what's reported by colleges, and not all colleges participate in the clearinghouse that we have used in the past. So we feel that the data on the right is a far more accurate picture of what our students are doing once they move beyond high school. So the next steps, we're going to have some more action meetings, and at the end of this presentation, I'll go back to slide 2 and make sure that you know who's all on the committee. So if you have some thoughts or constructive feedback, you know who you could reach out to. And we will include Dr. Patty Shank will be part of that work, and we're happy to have her aboard. And so does anyone have any questions? Please.
Team, does anybody have any questions?
So, Dr. Shank, I do want to thank you for being the school board champion for this. I think your keen interest sets a standard for the rest of us. So we appreciated having you at the meeting when we were going over all those action steps.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm really enjoying learning from both of you and the other team members, and getting into the nitty-gritty of how this is done. And I have looked up that podcast that you suggested, and I'm mortified.
Me too.
And as you'll see up here, this is a list of those who are serving on the committee, and if I may say, it's a very dynamic group, and very proud to work alongside these fellow educators. In addition to Dr. Shank and Mrs. Griebenow, Daniel Holmes, our Director of Special Education, is part of that work. Dr. Katie Scott, who is our multilingual specialist. Mrs. Devon Johnson, who is the principal at Lewis Palmer Elementary. Ms. Kim Briding, who is the Palmer Lake Elementary School principal. Amy Reniger, who is an assistant principal at Palmer Ridge. And as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Vin Chattel from Monument Academy.
So I have a question real quick. So when you spoke to how can we, to the matriculation that's tracked through the state versus how we, is that something that we can advocate for at the state level to be more accurate?
We certainly can, but we are not the only school district that has concerns around that data. When you look at the district performance framework, that part of the framework is probably the least, it feels the least valid out of all the data that we are held accountable to. And if I want to add to that, right now, the accountability legislation that has been proposed, House Bill 1278, has some changes that we're just going to need to keep an eye on and be mindful of going forward.
So to my fellow board members, 1278, part of the accountability bill may very well include where school districts who have a higher opt-out rate, that will count against the accountability and accreditation.
It will count against accredited with distinction.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, they have a participation rate expectation in that legislation. So that's something for us to be mindful of.
And when I was looking at this data, I think where we often forget is when we look at that 50th, that's growth. We're a very high achieving school district. And so those growth measures are still above our peers. But I also want to be mindful that students, you guys are not walking around this district with imaginary numbers floating above your head. And to that point, we had a teacher, I spoke with a teacher recently in one of our elementary schools that came to us from one of our neighboring districts. And she said something that I think is a testament to the educators we have in D38. She shared that she was very impressed with the culture we have here, where we teach for mastery and understanding versus other districts that are teaching to be able to take a test. And so I think that really is who we are in D38, and that makes me proud. And I love the goals you guys have set forth. Another request we had by one of our fellow board members, would we be able to pull you in for a very deep dive board work session in, say, June, when everything's done, to really hash out and go over what does all of this mean?
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, great. So we're going to put that on the agenda.
Love that.
Anybody else? Mr. Schwartz, you good?
I have a corollary question for when we go over the what does this all mean stuff.
He has a corollary question.
Okay.
And Dr. Brown, you talked about some pending legislation. Every year there's several pieces of legislation, some make it, some don't. And they all seem to have wonderful intentions and horrible unintended consequences. When we go through what this all means, can you in a very simple manner lay out new legislation that's passed and anything that's pending and likely to pass, and what its intent is, and what some of the potential pitfalls might be, so that we can try to stay ahead of that curve, please?
To be honest, right now, unless the legislation changes, one of the proposals, and there are a variety of things in there, so I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but right now, one of the proposed pieces of legislation is that 85% participation rate is a minimum to be eligible for accredited with distinction. And last year we were at 83, which means that if our scores were the same, that we would no longer be eligible because we would not be at that 85%.
There's a lot of detail within that bill. We would be happy to share more with you. It is likely that that legislation will pass.
My intent in trying to understand this is so that we can plan for what's coming, both the wonderful intent of legislation and its unintended consequences.
Agreed.
So
and that could very well change.
all.
It has not been passed. This is simply proposed legislation, but that's what the current legislation has in it, the proposed piece.
Thank you.
And I believe that there's also dyslexia legislation out there as well. I think it passed its first hurdle, which would mandate that districts provide screening to parents for dyslexia. Co-Kids is a parent advocacy group around dyslexia, so that's also in the works, which would have internal implications for us.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. Thank you. Anybody else real quick before they scooch? Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Our next item is for discussion is our first reading of our curriculum adoption. Ms. Wetstein, would you like to lead us in this discussion?
I would. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm happy to present a proposed new resource for our American history course this evening, and I want to recognize our team, specifically Annette Palmer, whose role is our gifted and talented facilitator for the district, but she took on the responsibility of gathering teachers and supporting them in a thorough review of our current American history resources and looking at optional resources moving forward. This is all in alignment with policy IJ. Core instructional programs, including digital text, shall be selected by the appropriate professional staff, and that is typically our teachers, and with input from our parents, our students, and community. The final decision on purchase shall rest with the superintendent, subject to approval by the Board of Education. And the policy states all core instructional programs and books shall be aligned with the academic standards and support the district's educational objectives. Core instructional programs and books shall be available for a 2-week period in a public setting or through a link. Public inspection shall occur prior to the board's first and second reading of the motion to adopt the programs. The public may access, review, and comment on the core instructional programs and books that are being considered in a prescribed manner during this period. And so I'll talk about how we did that. In the past, I've showed a different visual of our instructional framework, but just recently, our entire instructional leadership team, which includes principals, the education support staff here at Big Red, all of the assistant principals, the instructional coaches, they came together during one of our meetings and refined this visual to really emphasize all of the components that go into student instruction. So you'll notice curriculum is a small part of what goes into teaching and learning, and all these other things are just as important, but our curricular resources are certainly one part of what we use for teaching. This slide shows you our current curriculum revision cycle. We typically review our resources on a 6-year cycle. So in this year 3, 24-25 year, you heard Dr. Brahm and Ms. Griebenow mention that we're currently reviewing kindergarten through 5th grade English language arts and math resources. We also already reviewed earth, science, and chemistry resources. And the only proposed change at this time is, again, with American history. Here is the process that our team used to review the materials this year. Teacher teams came together and looked at the Colorado academic standards, and then they looked at the current textbook resource and identified if it met the current standards. Teachers then reviewed potential new resources and made a recommendation to purchase a resource called SAVAS. The Education Services team also contacted area districts who had recently purchased this curriculum and learned that surrounding districts have moved to this resource due to its non-bias manner and very factual content. The public was invited to review and comment digitally on newly proposed instructional resources, and there is a link in the presentation so that you can see all of the community comments there. And then again, the board has the authority to approve or deny the proposed new curriculum resource. As I mentioned, SAVAS is the recommended resource moving forward. It covers the course in time from 1877 through present day. Some of the public comments asked, why isn't slavery addressed more? And that is because those standards are covered in 8th grade. So this textbook begins in 1877. And some of the public comments also speak to the overuse of technology. That's one of the reasons that the teachers have proposed this new resource instead of the one we currently have. The one we currently use will no longer have a textbook option. It will only be digital, whereas this one we will purchase both student textbooks and students will have access to the textbook online as well. We had the materials up for review for the public from April 7th through yesterday, and we're here doing the first reading today, and then we are hopeful to bring it back to you on May 19th for approval. Overall, there were 12 community members who reviewed the materials. This is actually a little higher than typical. So we're grateful for the community members who took the time to review the materials. 9 were parents in our district, 1 was a high school student, and 2 were community members at large. The majority of ratings indicated that the resources are overall acceptable or superior. Comments regarding strengths included accessibility for all, engaging format, multiple perspectives, and encouragement for critical thinking. And again, some comments indicated a caution about over-reliance on technology and also potential for hidden biases. When we reviewed the materials, we had a very hard time finding anything but factual information. Some comments alluded to they couldn't find any biases within the materials, wondering if they might be hidden somewhere. And I'm happy to answer questions you may have.
Team, any questions?
I just wanted to say that I reviewed it. I thought, you know, I didn't see everything. I had a little bit of a hard time following it in some respects just because I'm used to textbooks being linear. And although it was linear, it didn't feel as linear. So as an old person, that was a little rough for me. But I listened to a bunch of the videos, and I thought it was well done. And I like the factual. Add the rest of it by teaching, and don't put it in the materials themselves. So I liked it a lot, and but like the other people who looked at it, I had a little hard time with linearity. But
yeah, you bring up a good point, Dr. Shank. When we adopt a resource, it sometimes isn't a cover-to-cover system that students would go through, and our students can probably speak to this. The teachers use it as a resource, so depending on the standard they're teaching, they would pull the resource for that topic, and they would assign students different readings and different assignments based on the topic teaching, but not necessarily in a linear fashion.
Right, and that makes total sense to me.
Any other thoughts or questions?
I have a quick question on slide 4.
Slide 4.
Let me know when it's up.
We're there.
That's the one that has the cycle, the revision cycle, right?
Correct.
What are the dynamics, I guess is the right word, that causes us to want to change curriculum as we review it?
So we want our students to have accurate and up-to-date information. The copyright in the case of the American History resource is 2018, and we know a lot has happened since 2018. So we want our students to have the most current and accurate and research-based materials. And we also follow, as best we can, the cycle that the Department of Education, the Colorado Department of Education, does in reviewing their standards. And so as those standards are updated and reviewed, our resources need to be updated and reviewed to ensure that our students are getting the content that they need to meet those standards. This was a cycle that I inherited upon coming to the district, and you can see some notes here that we're moving and shifting some things around just to make things make a little more sense. As an example, this year, for whatever reason, both English language arts or reading and math at the elementary school level were up for review, and those are very heavy lifts, 2 big content areas to do in 1 year. So our team is making some adjustments moving forward to have a more balanced approach to that workload. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? We will be voting on these at next year's, next year, our next board meeting in May. So if you have any further thoughts or questions, you can easily forward them to Ms. Wetstein. And with that, students, Maren, do you guys have any questions, thoughts? No? Cool. All right, so we are moving along. Okay, we are at our next item, which is our first reading of our J policies. And for this, we would like to invite our Director of Student Services, Mr. Rick Frampton, up. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you. As we discussed the last time we met, we are going through a process to evaluate all of the J policies. That process consists of taking our existing policies and aligning them with CASB's recommendations for policies. And as we go through them, we're going to continually bring them to your attention. One thing we talked about in last month's board meeting is that if there are no changes, we're going to start defaulting to a consent. We are not presenting any of those policies this evening with no changes. The 4 that you're going to see this evening have some minor changes. The JEB, JFABB, and JII. You'll notice these amendments that you'll see in the red line version are fairly insignificant changes that align and will update our policies with CASB recommendations. You'll notice that these policies were originally written in 2016, so they're almost 10 years old. When we look at JS, one of the things I want to bring to your attention is this is not going to be a minor change. Who knew that in the last 8 years, technology would have changed so dramatically that when we redlined our existing JS policy with the recommendations, the entire page was red. It's basically an entire rewrite because of the progression of how we access technology, how data is stored on servers, security, and the like. So there are going to be substantial edits and essentially an entire rewrite of policy JS. One thing I'd like to bring to your attention in your executive packet is you will notice that there are four redlined sections. Those are the sections that our IT department and Chris Mack are recommending that we make from the CASB recommendations. So Chris and his team went through the policy in detail and felt that those 4 lines would be more aligned with the way our network and our practices in Lewis Palmer work. So those are slight deviations from the CASB policy. Do you have any questions?
Any questions or thoughts? I appreciate actually that we are still, when we're looking at our policies and discussing our policies on changes or edits, that we are looking at them in what fits within D38 and what fits within our education system. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. That was a quick discussion. Okay, our next discussion item is F&P&A, our financial planning and analysis. Did I skip something? No. And we would like to invite Mr. Brett Ridgway up. How are you this evening, sir?
Excellent, thank you. I'm so glad the students are still here because I want them to see that we have some exciting stuff to talk about, right? It's okay, I'm a do-it-yourself guy.
What slides would you like us to look at, Mr. Ridgway?
Oh, all of them.
What slides would you like us to look at this particular juncture, Mr. Ridgway?
Okay, let me find the right place. Okay, so the first file I want to bring up just real quickly is the regular reporting file, which is the 24-25 trial balance file here. And this is the 118-page report. I hope you've all reviewed. So the pages I will want to focus on, normally we go to the general fund graphical presentations. We always have spent a lot of time on that. And I won't spend too much time on there because I really am going to be spending most of our time here in a totally different presentation talking about next year's budget. But the one thing I just wanted to emphasize here is where we're at year to date through the end of March in our expense pattern, and shows here that we're at 98.5%. So we're really on a good pace within this window precise performance that I like to have us operate within. So we're at $41.1 million is our budget, and we're at $40.5 million spent through the end of March. So we're on a really good, precise pace with that. The next page I wanted to draw your attention to as a kind of segue into the 25-26 budget conversation is this bookmark that I have that's called Revenue and Expense Context. And if I go there, that is page 6 of the presentation. I'm actually going to take us to looking at page 7 of the presentation here. And the reason I want to emphasize this is because when we get ready to talk about the budget, you'll see that I spend a lot of time on the School Finance Act. And this graph, this revenue context chart, is designed to indicate in terms of the types of revenue that we have, that School Finance Act revenue is 72% of our total revenue. So when we talk about our budget from next year, the main question in revenue is what's happening with the School Finance Act, since that is 72% of our overall revenue. And so, and this is data from 24-25 from this current fiscal year, but I just wanted to again emphasize that when I start talking about 25-26 and I put the number one point that we want to talk about is School Finance Act revenue, this is why. This is the emphasis and the kind of the evidence on why I will spend that focus there. So going back into the agenda, what I'm going to pull up is the presentation called Pages from SCC, which is a Staff Collaboration Committee. So back on April 2nd, we had I think a pretty good conversation and debrief with the Staff Collaboration Committee about the budget, and that's a big part of what that committee is there for, to make sure that we are making good communications and having good growth in our understanding of the finances of the district. And so this one kind of most important page that I've been putting together and emphasizing, I think with you all, also with the SCC, is this one single page where the big components, the big variables of the budget are kind of laid out. If you know nothing else about the school budget and you know these 6 points, it gives you a good indication of what is happening in next year's budget. And so, as I said, number one is what's happening with the School Finance Act. What's happening with that 70+% piece of the pie of our total revenue? Now that the answer to that question is in two pieces. A, what's happening with enrollment? Is our enrollment going up, going down, In this case, what you see there in red is I'm projecting it to be flat. And B, what's the per pupil revenue rate that that student count will be funded at? So the per pupil revenue rate increase that I am using right now is 2.5%. So that's a number that has eroded a little bit over the course of the spring and the course of the legislative session from going back to the governor's original proposed budget, which was about 3.5%, and it's come down from 3.5 to 3 to now 2.5. Now, there's been other things that have been happening as part of that regarding student count averaging that has had a little bit of an impact on the volume side of the equation. So really, there's been some give and take in that, but the reason to draw emphasis on this is not only what happens with the revenue, but then what does that mean as we then start to consider our expenses? If we're going to have a volume change, meaning there's going to be more students or fewer students, how is that going to affect the number of staff that we hire? In terms of our per pupil revenue rate, we're going to have a higher rate of payment for our student count, then that has the impact on, well, what is our rate of pay change going to be? So it's really, again, trying to strongly connect volume changes on the revenue side, volume changes on the expense side, rate changes on revenue to rate changes on expense. Point number two, it doesn't necessarily have to be point number two, but in what we've talked about this year, it is, because we have made the determination to decrease our annual investment in capital projects by $500,000. It's going from a $3 million, what has been a $3 million annual investment in capital projects, taking it down to $2.5 million. And the reason that we have taken that approach is to affect then number three, which is where we want to quickly get into what does this mean for average across the district pay change. Normally, what we would see is a average across the district pay change number that is slightly below the per pupil revenue rate number, but what we're seeing here is a 2.8% number, which is slightly above the 2.5% number. The way that we are able to do that is because we are reducing that investment on the capital project side. So that kind of provides a little bit of an additional resource that we can put into pay. And that's really in response to FTC, as I say here in this sentence, that this target of 2.8% was put out there by the FTC for us to try and strive for that, because that's the national rate of inflation. The Colorado rate of inflation is a little bit less than that, but that was something, an ideal that we wanted to strive for according to FTC, and so we've tried to hold that going forward. Number four here is what happens to health plan benefit costs. Benefit costs are a big part of our expense load, so it's not just the pay, the gross pay that all of our staff earn, but it's the benefits that get applied to that, which of course we have para first and foremost as that, but the para is pretty stable. It's a fairly large number. It's a 20% number. But what's happening with health plan benefit costs? And that we have to respond to what's been happening in terms of our utilization. How much have our staff been utilizing the health insurance benefits that we have? And like you'd expect from any insurance, item, if there's been high utilization, that means your increase next year is going to be high. If there's been lower utilization, then you have a chance of keeping it flat or maybe a smaller increase. We've had really high utilization this year, and so we are seeing a very high increase to the benefit plan cost.
Question on that one?
Yep.
What is the 13% in raw dollars?
Good question. And I think I will get to that in a few slides.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Schwartz?
I'm sure it's on page 187 of the report.
There are only 10 pages to this particular report, so thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Yes. And there is a page here that we will speak to that in just a couple pages. So if we can hold on
Thanks.
that.
No problem. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. Because again, we do have to remember this is percentage based, right? So does 13.5% against 2.8% mean there's 11% erosion? No, they're different denominators, right? So And that's why it's a great question for Mr. Schwartz to ask, well, what's the raw dollar impact of that? And number 5 here, it's important for us is that we are moving towards this student-based budgeting, and I was really taking notice of that new graphic that Amber showed in the last presentation, and having student focus in the center of that, because that's really what student-based budgeting is about, is keeping the student need in the center of that, and trying to measure what are all the other things that are happening around that, and trying to limit that as much as we can.
Well, you have 1 minute until our students, to center around our students.
But they're loving it. They're going to hang. They're going to hang. No. So we're making this shift towards that, and it's not easy to do this, and we've been kind of working. We have been working with particularly schools affected in that, and so that's why we're doing a 60% shift and not a 100% shift. We're trying to measure our change in that, so we don't break anything on this path, but we can get to a point where our spends and our spending plans really align well with what our academic focus is, and that is about student-centered. The number 6 one there is just, it talks about the CIC being kind of the big change item that we have, not only in programming but also financially, and just how that is continuing to be funded by the fund balances freed up by the Senate Bill 2417 last year. So skipping ahead, there's a page in there which I included about the 25-26 School Finance Act. I'll leave that for your own consumption later, and if you have questions, you can come back to me on that. The information from that 25-26 School Finance Act gets translated into this sheet, where I calculate on page 4 here what is our new money, because really it's identifying the new money that tells us, and whether that money is rate-based or volume-based, that tells us what kind of changes are we going to be expecting in 25-26. And what we can see here is, in this highlighted blue number here on the lower right, where it says $1.2 million of total new money, $1.4 million of that is rate-based. And because we are flat in our volume, we don't have much increase. In fact, it's mathematically calculating it out to be a slight decrease. And again, that goes back to the student count averaging concept, which is a little bit more intricate, and I won't bother us with that here. But that number is a slight negative, and that has improved in these recent iterations of the School Finance Act to be not so negative because of the student count averaging. So in the budget and the health benefit costs, again, this is what I want to show, that we had to this year change from 4 plan offerings down to 3, and that was at the direction of our provider, which is CEBT, Colorado Employee Benefits Trust. And so we had to basically query the affected staff members and say, hey, between the PPO and EPO plans that we had in 24-25, and considering another option being this Surest plan, which of these 3 plans do you want to move forward with going into 25-26? And the reason that those were the ones put forward is because the EPO and the PPO have more similar designs to each other than either the high deductible plan or the Kaiser HMO plan. Those are more unique in and of themselves, and so we wanted to make sure that we kept as broad of a spectrum of offerings to our staff as possible. But that meant that between the PPO and the EPO, we had to consider which one of those to move away from. And so basically 51% of the staff impacted that did participate in that survey chose to stay with the PPO. So we are unwinding the EPO plan this year and giving people the chance or the opportunity, really the request to say, hey, where are you going to move from, either to the PPO or onto one of the other 2 plans.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when I'm looking at this on page 5, and we're looking at the PPO versus the EPO, that will be for next year.
Yes.
What is the increase in cost to the staff?
So,
or can you just, if you want to send it to me later to discuss before we vote on our budget, that's fine, but is there an increase to them? Is there a burden to our staff?
There is. And I will just get to that right now, since you and Mr. Schwartz have both pressed on that. So page 6 of the presentation, which says page 14 because it came out of the SCC deck. Here's the mix of what we try and do with our health benefit plan. And basically what we aim for is something about a 70-30 ratio. So 70% of the burden for their health plan is borne by the district, borne by the employer. They are paying for the 30%. And so we are trying to maintain that ratio, and as what you can see here from 24-25 to 25-26, we're actually just going a tick up. We're going from the underside of the 70-30 to just slightly over the 70-30 at 70.2%. And so what that means from an annualized basis here, that the employees this year out of their pay are contributing $1.2 million aggregated to their health insurance plan, and next year it'll be $1.3 million, so it's an increase of $145,000. Now, that tells you in total, and the reason I want to present it that way is because it's important to just remember that the changes that we present are still being mostly borne by the district side, right? So we're maintaining that 70-30 ratio, and in fact going a little bit further on that. So the changes of this 13.5% is mostly being borne by the district side, and 30% of it effectively being borne on the employees.
The reason I was asking is when we're looking at trying to make sure that we're balancing and giving that pay increase of 2.8%, but when it's subtracted from the dollars that they are now having to increase to put into their plans, how does that balance out? Is what was on my mind.
Right, and I thought I had a slide on this, so I don't, this slide here that on page 5, the slide page before, I don't have the 24-25 numbers on here, so I can't easily show you the individual per month costs from the employee. But in general, with the exception of possibly the HMO plan, because the increase is differentiated by the 3 offerings. So the highest utilization happened on the HMO plan, therefore the highest increase is on the HMO plan. Okay, and so that's where the biggest cost is. So I think with the exception of that, and a pay increase will not be entirely swallowed up by a benefit increase. There's potential, depending on where people are at on pay scales and things like that, and where they're at in terms of their selections with the HMO, that it could.
I'll jump in and say thank you to our students and release you to the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Next time you come, we'll have more to vote on and less discussion. But it's the end of the year, lots of discussion happens.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for the extra 7 minutes.
Mr. Ridgway, at the, yep.
May I ask a question, make a comment on this? So first of all, Mr. Ridgway, congratulations on driving our students out successfully.
Once again.
Yes. Your reputation is flawless. Secondly, more importantly, I don't think there's a employee in the United States that isn't going through this with healthcare. And if you look across most commercial industry, you'll find that the portion that is being absorbed by the employees these days is significantly more. And so really only active duty and retired pre-Medicare military are not seeing this dynamic. And either the industry's broken or the industry is successfully winning the argument that everybody was getting a good deal for what they were receiving, and they're going to start raising the prices because the industry's bearing too much of the cost. And that's what we're seeing here on a macro basis.
Yes, correct. I appreciate that.
So the only way to begin to chip away at this, barring the industry having wholesale changes, is for us to consider self-insuring, which I know is on the plate. Is that still something that you and your team are going to take a look at beginning next year?
Yes, sure. That would be my hope. And going to a self-insured plan gives us greater opportunity to determine what rates are. Because really, these rates are given to us. And it's kind of a take it or leave it type of scenario. Now, there is math behind it, but because we're part of a larger group, again, as the Colorado Employer Benefits Trust, we're one of probably like, I think it's like 90 districts they've talked about that are together. And so are we taking a lot of our direct utilization? Yes, but there's also some utilization, some results that are being shared across that group. So yes.
And that may balance out over a decade too.
Right.
There could be years where we're an excessive user and nobody else is, vice versa.
Mm-hmm. But what it also would give us a chance to do is maybe smooth out some of the volatility, where instead of a 13.5% increase one year and then a 4% increase the next year, we may be able to smooth that out more over time.
Right.
So it's not so choppy for everyone.
Good thoughts.
I would be curious when you're doing that, to take a look at the last 5 years. I know we've absorbed double-digit increases every year that I've been here.
Right.
Which means 12% over 5 years compounded is probably in excess of 3/4 or 75% growth, right?
I don't have my calculator with me.
Yeah,
It
well,
sounds
it'd be
about right.
60%.
It sounds about right, yeah.
So, okay, so it's getting to where the doubling rate is significant.
Yeah. This one is definitely by far the biggest we've had in a while, and it's unfortunate in terms of the timing that it didn't. You could say, well, it could have happened last year when we had a 6% average pay increase, and that wouldn't have been as painful. So again, if we'd had the opportunity that we have in a self-funded model, we could have managed that differently potentially.
So we will be voting on these budgets in June, correct?
Correct.
Okay. One of the things that, when we're looking at this, I want to make sure personally, as one board member, what's important to me is when we're looking at our backpack funding and how the dollars follow the student in the building, knowing that we have some buildings that have more impacted students, such as like Palmer Lake Elementary is a Title I school. So really making sure that we're still leaning into the needs of putting our students first, but also taking care of our staff.
I can mention that we are required to provide equal, I guess, funding per student across the district. Equal is probably not the exact right word I'm looking for, but equitable funding. And then the Title I dollars that we provide to our schools are intended to provide that additional support for students in need. So that's one way that we ensure additional support for Palmer Lake especially.
And recognizing that special education students they get additional funding, but it's still not enough to fully fund the cost of educating our students that are impacted. So those dollars come out of other per pupil revenue as well.
Of everyone's. Yes.
Out of every student's per pupil revenue.
For sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to side rail you there,
Okay.
but it was on my mind, so I blurped it out.
So next, I want to take this and say, okay, back to this. The reason I was emphasizing this healthcare change is because on the district side, it's $385,000. And we go back to the earlier slide, I talked about the School Finance Act saying of $1.2 million of net total new money, this is $300,000 of new spend to go against $1.2 million of new money. So what's left out of that is $900,000. And so when we go to the point of saying, what are we going to do for pay change, we need to hit something in that $900,000 range. And so this is looking at our employee groups across the pay segments. So the classified hourly group, the licensed, i.e. the teachers, professional, technical, and administrative groups, and to say, of those groups with the dollars that we've spent in 24-25, what kind of projected change could we look towards to hit this 2.8% average across the district number? So you see that there towards the bottom right in terms of the percentage difference. And then you see the $900,000 number there in terms of the raw dollars that we needed to hit. So this is the mix of changes by these segments that would bring that together. So you'll see, as we would normally see, but not as we have seen in the last couple of years, that the classified hourly, because they are generally a lower paid annual paid group, they're on a percentage basis, they'll see more. And administrative on the inverse, being higher paid, they will see less on a percentage basis. And so I think that's been a good appropriate strategy for us. But everything does contract more this year when we don't have such a large gain in per pupil revenue rate. Everything kind of contracts to a much tighter group this year. So part of what I'm doing today with this presentation is saying to you, here is the strategy that I've mapped out. Here are the pay schedules that would support that. Because again, when I do this work, I basically go through every one of the 754 people in the district and map out an individual increase for them, and then aggregate those results to say, will this really play out the way that we need it to? Both, again, in terms of hitting that 2.8% and hitting that $900,000 number. And so these are the pay schedules that when I do that, especially for the pay schedules that I have in here are for the classified for 309 people there, and for the licensed for nearly 400 people there. That's the process. And so we would be then moving forward, absent any objections or concerns from the board, with here in May issuing contracts and notices of assignment based on this information. So any questions or observations or concerns that I can clarify for you in terms of this proposal?
Team, any thoughts, questions, proposals, jokes? No? Anything that you guys have to share with Mr. Ridgway, don't hesitate to reach out with an email as individuals, but don't CC any of us. Always need to caveat that.
I will always respond to everyone so that a question gets asked to me, you all can have the answer. But as you're saying, don't ask the question in a group setting.
Yep. Thank you for working on this. It is still sad, I gotta admit, when I look at the hourly minimum wage. But thank you for leaning in and making sure that most of that goes back to our staff.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Next, last discussion item before we go into our voting section is Career and Innovation Center update. And we would like to invite Ms. Melissa Andrews up, who will present an update on our Career and Innovation Center, along with Amber Wetstein. And I don't know if Mr. Ridgway is part of this conversation or not. Okay.
I will kick it off. Ms. McAllister had another obligation this evening, so I offered to present her slides for her. I'm sure I won't do as good of a job as Ms. McAllister, but I will certainly give it my best shot. I'll start with this program timeline that we typically share with these updates. And if you look very closely and you hone in on the upcoming May timeline, you'll notice that we are planning for staff onboarding and a logo reveal. So that is what I will speak to this evening. We've identified teachers for the courses that will be taught at the Career and Innovation Center, and so you see those courses and the teacher names here, and we're beginning conversations to get them prepared for the courses that they will teach at the center. And then something exciting, we are challenging our digital media and communication students to create logos for the Career and Innovation Center. So each of our secondary schools are participating, and they'll be utilizing Adobe industry tools. Finalists will be announced May 2nd, and you can all vote May 5th through May 9th. So we'll get that information out to everyone so you can help us select a logo for the new center. And we'll be excited to reveal the logo on May 12th. And thank you to everyone who came out to celebrate the wall breaking event. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Andrews to talk about construction that is currently underway.
All right, thank you so much. So March 31st was our wall breaking ceremony, and we had fantastic attendance. I want to say there was over 100 participants at that event, and that is larger than we typically even see for ribbon cutting ceremonies. So we are super excited our community's engaged. A few pictures from that event.
That was super fun.
Yeah. And then that officially kicked off the demo of our building. And so as you see here, the pictures look a little bit different than what we saw when we were in there for that wall breaking ceremony. Pretty much everything has been gutted. And so we can start on the construction. We had an inspection on the demo and that went very well. And so we are having our HVAC equipment starting to arrive late this week. And then we are hoping to have our permit through the regional building department next week so we can kick off construction.
I'll mention that we are continuing to pursue sponsorship opportunities. That is ongoing, and we are getting some traction that I'm hopeful to share with you at an upcoming board meeting. And then, Melissa, do you want to speak to the owner-architect construction meetings?
Yes. So once a week, we have owner, architect, and contractor meetings. They are on Tuesdays. And what this allows us to do is touch base on anything that is happening for safety, for current construction, for its requests for information, if there's any conversations that need to go back and forth between the contractor and the architect or the engineers, just to make sure that we have a streamlined process, things aren't getting overlooked. We're aware of any problems that we're hitting that might delay or anything like that. So we will have feedback to be able to provide back to the district immediately. At those meetings, we also do a site walk so we can watch the progress on our construction. And we have on our team vendors that will help with inspections. So we have a third-party inspector to make sure that we are protected. And then we also have commissioning agents at the end of the project that will allow for us to verify that everything is operating as it is supposed to be, and so that we are getting what we've asked for.
And we're happy to answer questions that you may have.
Thoughts, questions, team? Quiet crowd tonight. Mr. Schwartz, do you want to speak?
Sure, thank you. First of all, congratulations and great job getting us to here. Melissa, both you and Jessica and Brett, so thank you guys and your teams. Secondly, are there any potential risks you see from us being ready to go for our opening in August?
So long as we don't have any design changes, we are on track to finish on time and in budget. We are trying to make sure that all of our requests for information are added quickly or responded to quickly and get our orders in as soon as possible because we are already starting to see some tariffs hit. But right now, we're completely fine on both budget and timeline.
Okay, great, thank you.
When we get closer to opening, we've got several sponsors that are starting to roll in. I would love to see a way to acknowledge and honor those sponsors.
Absolutely.
And that space it's pretty overwhelming. The footprint of that building is pretty amazing on the things that we can accomplish. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are at our next segment, our Board of Education action items. And our first action item is E1, announcement of superintendent candidate finalists. Do we have a motion?
Yes, President Upchurch, I would like to move that the Board of Education approve the following resolution declaring finalists for superintendent of Lewis Palmer School District 38 in compliance with CRS 24-6-402 3.5. Whereas the Board of Education has lawfully conducted a superintendent search pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402 3.5, and whereas the board has decided upon 2 finalists for the position of superintendent, now therefore be it resolved and declared by the Board of Education of Lewis Palmer District 38, the following persons are finalists for the position of superintendent for Lewis Palmer District 38. Adam Frank, Amber Wetstein.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, discussion. So what I will share is our timeline now is that we will announce our finalists tonight have been announced, and then we will do a selection advisory committee. Interviews will happen on May 5th, and then May 6th, after our Board of Education work session, the board will be interviewing our 2 finalists, and then we will announce our final contract and presentation on our by May 19th, and we will vote at our May board meeting. And board, what we will do is when we're formulating our questions, I'm going to ask that we direct our human resource director that when you're formulating the committees, that the committees have the opportunity to vote for their own spokespeople during those committee questions, and when they're submitting their pros and cons, that they're speaking on the committee's behalf. And then the board, we should individually, when we're submitting our questions, do not submit them and do not share them with the rest of us as fellow board members. That will be done on an individual basis, and the questions will be the same questions for both candidates.
We will be submitting them to Ms. Welch?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
By what date?
So our interview is May 6th, so we need time to finalize that. So we can set a deadline for the Friday before that, if that works.
Yeah.
Although that makes you work for the weekend, so let's do Thursday.
Okay.
We also need to vote still, but that's the discussion.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ms. Wood, would you take roll?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. Okay, our next item is E2, consider approve the purchase of a prefabricated building for the Homeschool Enrichment Academy. And we as a board, before we came to this, we really tasked the staff with showing us the data, the numbers, the information, and I appreciate that you guys really put your nose to the grindstone and really worked hard on this, so I appreciate it. So with that, before we vote, Mr. Ridgway and I guess Brett and Melissa, that's it. Will you guys take it away?
Thank you. So Melissa and I will kind of do this together. And really what I want to say is that we followed up with some good questions that we received at the last meeting that wanted to understand in particular what space options do we have in the district currently that may be part of the consideration. And so I love being tasked with hard questions so that we can really dig into and get good information to answer that. What Melissa has presented, over the course of this conversation here through the late winter and on to this early spring is that there are certain scenarios that we could pursue, starting with building and purchasing an existing building, purchasing one particular building from Tri-Lakes Cares that may become vacant, is likely to become vacant, I say, and then building new facilities in one of three scenarios, either stick-built construction, metal construction, or the pod construction. So this table here really is laying out those different options in terms of that, but what this doesn't talk about necessarily is the space in existing schools. So below that first line is talking about space in existing schools. And so part of what we wanted to respond to from the last board meeting is to go into that conversation. And I think really a good anchor point to that is the fact that we had Melissa, in particular, I should say, in terms of we presented a conversation back in January about all of our facilities and what our capacities were in those facilities, right? And so those logically could ask, create the questions of, well, if there are capacity in certain buildings, does that mean there are capacities for programs, or is it really just a student capacity type of thing? So I want Melissa to just talk a little bit about the process that she went through in this, and then we'll go in through a couple of examples of the work that she did to really scope out, is there possibility, is there technical possibility, is there practical possibility through this? And so that's kind of what we want to walk through here in these first couple of slides. But Melissa, if you could speak to this part, please.
Not a problem. So as I went through and did the analysis, I wanted to make sure that we were taking a few things into consideration. When we were looking at those maps in the capacity study, that was really looking at the number of students in spaces. But what we need to clarify is that at times, we can't just assume that those numbers break down equally into classrooms, because we will have a class of 15 kids that takes up one full classroom, where our ideal is 25 and can go up to 30. And so I can't take a class of 15 first graders and a class of 15 fifth graders and combine those and free up one classroom. So what I did is I looked at our current enrollment for what we have next year. And I also looked at how many kids we tend to increase between now and October count per grade in each school. And I compared that against projections, and we seem to be on target for the most part on projections per grade. I looked at that and converted that into the number of classrooms needed per grade. So I broke it off at 30 kids, not that we're looking for 30 kids, but I can't very well ask for another teacher when I have 26 kids. So that breaking point at 30 would be when we're gonna hopefully be able to break into a new classroom and add another teacher. Something like that. Now, I'm not an educator. I'm just trying to use logic as we're kind of coming up with the number of classrooms. Also took into consideration at the middle school level the teaming approach and looking at special education and how they're utilizing space in the building, as well as preschool programming. Anything to add? Okay.
So we did, as she implied with that, she really did that work for every facility, and we're only going to really talk about two, what would be the most theoretically possible scenarios. And we come to Kilmer first, and again, I want to refer back to this January presentation where we said, hey, Kilmer current use capacity versus Kilmer maximum efficiency, you can see here was a delta of 185 students. So that is a logical, again, number, just observation to say, well, does that mean that there is capacity for programming, or is there capacity for students in this? And so the color coding here on this page is important to remember, because we have the yellow rooms being the regular education rooms, and the green highlighting being where are we doing special education services. So even just looking at this maximum efficiency page, you can tell, the side of the chart, well, you can tell that there's really a lot of theory to this, and then that would have additional implications beyond that. If that theory were ever to be achieved or pursued, that there would have to be some additional considerations, because in general, we're not probably going to be able to go down from 6 special education rooms to 1 special education room, and just to achieve that without there being a secondary effect somewhere else in the district. So going into then analyzing is there a scenario here? There's a particular emphasis then on those special education classrooms from this current use, and you see that of those 6 rooms, what Melissa's identified is there are a certain amount of rooms that are basically essential. Would that be the way you would say that? And there are other rooms where we may just simply be using a space that's available, and there could be a theoretical, again, potential to do those in smaller spaces or fewer spaces. And so that's the difference between the red stars and the pink stars on this, is that, hey, the red stars are still pretty necessary for those spaces. The pink stars are something that we could consider in that special education world to do that in fewer space, smaller space. So that's how we transition from the left side of this page to the right side of this page to say, okay, if we could do that, and given the student counts, and all of these ifs, what could potentially be available. And so what you see there is a block of 5 classrooms there on the right side of the chart that you could say it could be available for a different program, i.e. homeschool, to come in and co-locate in that space. Now, is that a good solution or not a good solution? That's not really what we're here to say, but we are here to identify some of the pros and cons to that type of thing. Could you speak to this one?
Okay, so this graph is a little complicated. There's a lot of information on here, and I do apologize for that. When we're looking at the graph itself, on the left-hand side are numbers of students. And so typically, if I were to present something like this to you, you would see number of students only. But because of the conversation we're having, we need to know how that correlates to classrooms, which is on the right-hand side of the graph. So all of the dark blue from 2020 to 2024, I can't read that very well, I'm sorry. Those are actual October count enrollments. The little light blue stripies at the top are our preschool enrollments. And then on the very far right, that 2025 number is our projected number for next school year. And so what I'm saying with that gray bar at the bottom is how many classrooms Kilmer will need for next year, which is right there at 13. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see there's a little mark, and it shows a dashed red line and a solid red line. That dashed red line is showing their current core capacity, the number of seats or classrooms available based on how they're currently using the building. And then the very top red line is showing that maximum efficiency number where most of that special education programming was pulled out of that space.
Go ahead and finish it.
Okay. And so we know that we need those special education classrooms, and that is not going to be an option. So what we're looking at is if we looked at those conditions, that we would need a minimum of 7 rooms to function in our homeschool program the way they currently function now, and that would be tight. That green line is what we would need. Yes.
So before we go on to our other buildings, because clearly this shows having to split students up K through 12. I'm still struggling with the statement I haven't even got out of my head yet is our de-escalation room finding a spot. And that's for me, I'm just gonna put it out there, that doesn't feel right, doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to our impacted students, it doesn't feel good to the students and the families that are in that building, and it doesn't feel good to our Homeschool Enrichment Academy families who are looking for a permanent spot. And when student counts go up and down, this is still only a temporary solution. And it doesn't feel like if we are in the business of putting kids first, all of our kids, regardless of their backgrounds and regardless of their education needs, if we're putting them first, this doesn't resonate with me. I'm just going to share that right now before we even continue, and I hope I'm not being disrespectful. And I know that even when I look at the efficiency piece, I'm still struggling with that on just a regular basis of where is the balance between efficiency and making sure that we're taking care of every student every day. So I really appreciate that you put this much effort and work into this, and you can continue. This is hard for me to look at.
I think it's clear also that this specific solution doesn't work. Because efficiency is never in education, efficiency is never the only solution. You have to be efficient and effective, and that's really hard to do, and we really tasked you with a lot of work to help us figure that out, but this doesn't work.
Yeah, and we just want to say we took that question and that tasking and said let's really dig into this and see what we can figure out, and so to some of the point here, and this is our best case scenario, of all that we looked at, right? And so here we'd say there are 5 classrooms, again, theoretically potentially available. That doesn't include office spaces for the homeschool admin either. So is there an office for, you know, the leader, the administrative assistant, et cetera? And so these impacts on the far right side here are not, strictly speaking, financial impacts, but they are programmatic impacts, not only to the homeschool program, but also to the host school, potentially. And so those are, you know, and that's, and I don't think that that's an exhaustive list either. That's just kind of what we have quickly identified.
I have one question. When we go through this exercise, this doesn't look like this, does this give an opportunity for our homeschool families to bring the resources that they need? Kiln, art room, things like that, gym, and does it offer opportunity for, if these classrooms are segmented, then that means that they're segmented for their use, but the rest of the week, couldn't see us utilizing and renting it out or being a community space or a space that the homeschool enrichment families could use beyond or interfering with the schedules. Did we take that into consideration?
So when I went back to the 7 classrooms, if we went back to what their ideal is, it's a 7 classrooms plus an art room, plus their science room, plus a gymnasium. So no, this is just the 7 classrooms. And so in order to access some of the other spaces, it would require working around the schedule of the school, but those gymnasiums and art rooms are used the entire day. So now we would have to get even more creative to find out if it's a before and after school option or what we could do to even make that an option.
Thank you for looking at this. It really shows the picture really clearly.
I think to your point too. I mean, it wouldn't be probably a 2-day a week program at that point. You know, it'd need to be more days, which is again a programming change. But just to your point of would the spaces be vacant during those other days? I actually think they would be occupied consistently, but again, it would just be different, quite different.
Okay, keep going, sorry.
Okay. So again, that was kind of our most plausible, scenario. We did want to show at least one other, and we can talk just some high-level observations on some of the other schools as well. So Lewis Palmer Elementary School, interestingly enough, kind of provided the next best scenario, if you will. And again, going back to our January conversations, we were basically saying, hey, there's space in there between current use and maximum efficiency of 120 students. So again, it's worthwhile to ask that question to say what could happen. We go through much the same exercise as we were talking about, identifying there's a lot of special education happening at Lewis Palmer Elementary School, and so you see a lot of rooms in the green highlight there, with the yellow highlight being the regular education classrooms. There you can see 5 particular classrooms with the red stars and only 1 with the pink star. So it's not as easy of a consolidation, if you will, as we, again, not that Kilmer's was easy, it was just easier than this. And so still with that consolidation of keeping those 5 red stars and really the pink, where does the pink even really go in this scenario? I think is a question. And so even with all of that, we say, okay, there could be again a 4 classroom place to isolate that. But it really starts to become even more contrived in a way to try and make something work in this regard. So we come back to this chart as well. And so the same pattern here in terms of identifying both student count on the left, classrooms on the right. On the far right side, there being some initial observations of maybe what's still not really covered in this, and kind of what would be pros or cons to this scenario. Anything else, Melissa, for you?
Go to the next scenario.
So those are the only two scenarios that we talked about in terms of schools. So if there are any particular questions you'd like on other schools, for instance, I know Palmer Lake comes up in conversation a lot because when we have talked about our capacity issues or our capacity report back in January, we said, hey, there is a lot of capacity available in Palmer Lake in a student count wise, but what we really find out is that it's really in a student count vein and not in a classroom vein, because their grade level counts are kind of at a level that doesn't really facilitate any good consolidation opportunity. And what we're already doing there is taking preschool into that building where it has not been in the past. So we're already doing some of this and adding student count into that building. So when we, on one hand, when we look at it and saying, well, it's a very low populated school compared to other schools, that's true, but it's also a totally different footprint that's in play there. And so it just didn't really present the same opportunity as even an LPE did in this scenario.
Okay.
So then we wanted to just clarify this pod construction option and offer up again what are some things that pods are not, some misconceptions about them, what pods can be if we do it well. Cover this or? Okay.
So back in the day, modulars were kind of not good looking things and they didn't last very long. So we were lucky to get 15 years out of them. The construction has increased by leaps and bounds. These are off-site built spaces. There's 2x6 construction. They are lasting 40 to 50 years based on the manufacturer's information. And the nice thing about a modular is that we can add to it to make it larger. We can take stuff away from it. We can sell it. We can move it. So there's a lot of nice aspects to a pod. The nice thing about a pod over a modular, it is all enclosed within one space, so we don't have all these individual modulars with people away from each other when we have situations like a lockdown. It's all of those classrooms together. They have a unit around them. So we can do a lot of things with pods where they don't have to be up on ramps. We can set them down into the ground when we have enough run to the utilities, so we have a good drop to that wastewater. But then we can also help the aesthetics of the exteriors of the building. So on this one, if you look at the top left side, that is pretty much a traditional pod up on the ramps and stairs going up to it. So we could take a building like that, and you see a lot of different options on exteriors. They do have an additional cost to be able to do something like this, which we can investigate, but there's wood options, there's brick options, there's just things that can dress them up. And our contractor can attach the two buildings that we're proposing so that there's a hallway. It won't be two separate buildings. Is there anything more you'd like to say about those? Okay. So we came up with a couple of the options that are available to us. One of them is here. Did you want to speak to this one or do you want me to? Okay. So we did a few layouts, and here's one of the scenarios where if I overlaid this, as we were talking about master planning this site, there was a lot of interest in how we could have property lines and different parcels here. And if you see that dark line between Grace Best and Enterprise, or that big pink area, that is one of the property lines that was proposed at that time. And so as we look at that, we were able to get the entire pod to fit on one side of that, which frees up the entire parcel where Grace Best sits. The box to the left, which is between admin and the Enterprise building, that would become the playground. Since the building currently sits where the playground is, the purpose for that is that playground is the end of life anyway. We can't replace the parts it needs to get replaced. So this is the time to do all of that work as well. This pod that we have here proposes 7 classrooms plus a dedicated art room and a dedicated science room. There would be the multi-purpose space and room for offices. They would have access on the site to utilities because there was a pod here at one point in time. There would have access to an existing parking lot, access to this room if they needed some extra space for an after-school gathering of parents, whatever that looks like. And let's see, it keeps them separated out from the traditional schools so they can be on their own and do their own programming. So the only site work here that would be required, with the exception of trying to see if we can get that set down into the ground, would be the playground. We did offer another opportunity, and that would be at Bear Creek Elementary School. There is an area where there was meant to be another school built. The utilities extend from the main building through a tunnel and land about partway through that soccer field. And so we could do a similar project here, having access to utilities. We'd have expandability. There may be some opportunity to talk to the school to find out if they could access the auxiliary gymnasium. That I have not spoken with them yet. However, the site would require the construction of road access and a parking lot.
So I think in conclusion, from our perspective, it probably shouldn't be a surprise really to say that there really is no and we have not found an easy solution. We've had to try and find what are the feasible solutions, what are those costs associated with that, whether those are really actually hard dollar costs, or are these costs that are more non-financial in terms of programming, perception, things like that. And so I know this has taken time, but this is time that's been necessary to go through this process that really started all the way back in the fall with our inspection that gave us the indication that, hey, Grace Best was not going to continue to be an option for us. And so the board taking that action that you did in January to make a final decision on Grace Best was, again, that necessary impetus that we said we need to move forward with conviction to finding other options and to presenting these other options to you. So I was initially way too optimistic at being able to go through that quicker than we have been, but we didn't want to rush just to try and meet that timeline that we'd put out there, and instead have come to this path, this place that we're at now, where again we say, starting the school year in Grace Best is feasible. It's probably a good scenario, so that we can pursue one of these permanent options and not require multiple moves and things like that. So I guess I'll leave it to you. Leave it next for questions, comments, observations from you all.
Team, do you have any comments, observations, questions?
I think the best option, which is most effective and efficient, is a pod here on our property here. Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Or, okay.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I can wait to do that.
I'm good.
Ron, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thanks to Melissa, Brett, and your teams for doing this diligence. It's given the depth and breadth of the homeschool enrichment program, it's important that we do this work right so that they have a quality place to get their academic enrichment and their extracurricular enrichment. Secondly, this will cost some capital, and we're responsible for 5,400 total students. We want to make sure we utilize that capital well, and that the assets that we have in place are utilized to their maximum academic extent without sacrificing quality. So that's the rationale behind doing this quantity of diligence. How long, what is the lifespan of those pods, Melissa?
So the manufacturer is telling us 40 to 50 years.
What is the industry telling us in terms of quality utilization?
I don't
We understand that question. Are you talking about, do we see experience less than 40 or 50 years, different than 40 or 50 years? Or are you asking a totally different question? I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Okay.
What's the practical, independent of what the manufacturer says at time of sale?
So if
What's
we
the
maintain,
practical life of these things in our scenario?
okay, so if we maintain them well, like our facilities department tends to do, they will last a good 40, 50 years. We just have to keep up on the maintenance. We can't
Okay,
let them sit.
next question. Thank you. Next question. Is there a secondary market for these if in a decade we determine that we're going to do a major overhaul of an existing building or put in a brand new one and we decide to do a wing for homeschool enrichment?
Yes, I already have an inquiry on if we have anything available for sale from a neighboring district, and we get these inquiries often.
Do we have any feel for what the depreciation ratio is and how fast it happens? In other words, if we spend $2.5 million tomorrow, and in a decade we're going to refurbish Bear Creek and add a wing, because that's what the voters choose to do, and that's what demographics say. Can we sell this thing for $1 million and get it off the property?
That's a really great question, and I don't know that I have a convincing answer
right, because with the CIC, we have a really good feel for that.
Right,
Yes.
right.
That's where I'm going.
I definitely would say
I'm going to try to maximize the life of a dollar for the taxpayer.
correct. So definitely, it's not zero. There is value to it.
Right.
Would it be $1 million? I might be a little hesitant on that much, but I would say it'd be in the several $100,000 value range at least. Again, if you're talking about 10 years. And one of the ways that we maintain value in these is by not moving. Once you start moving them, that creates stress on them and shortens their lifespan and also reduces their value. So I think to your scenario, that's a great way to look at it, to say if we got it and put it in place and kept it in place and maintained it well, what would be that value? Yeah, I think there would be a value of several $100,000 in that. If we moved it a couple times in between then, that would not be probably as assured.
Right. But if it's a $2.5 million item, then $1 million is 40%. And if in 10 years you can still recover 40%, that's pretty good. And that's my point.
Yes.
Right, is how do we use this dollar 5 different times for the benefit of the students?
Agreed. Thank you.
For the record, the number you have here for the pods themselves for the refurbished buildings are 1.9. The 2.30 is the total package done, all the accoutrement, all the bells, whistles, all the things, right? From what I'm reading here.
So that's what I have for right now. The site is going to make a difference on how much it's going to cost. I'm still waiting on costs for excavation and all of that to come in. That's why that number is red, is that's our best guess at this time. And a lot of it's been confirmed by a contractor. I just need to get verification on where we're going to put it and make sure everything's accounted for.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
I guess I want to point out the obvious one, and we're talking about spending, what, $2.5 million on this building, and then another $1 million to knock down Grace Best. The community is going to ask, how much could we do to fix Grace Best with that $3.5 million? I mean, or is it just not fixable?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, Todd. Because if we go back to the presentation that we had in terms of this action item back in January about the Grace Best, kind of the least cost scenario we had in that was, I think, $12 million.
I'm looking at it right now.
So this is still a much more cost-effective option than that, and it has this other benefit, that we've talked about, having the land freed up there for other conversations down the road. So, does that answer your question, Todd?
gonna hear about it. And do we have that $2.5 to $3.5 billion available to us right now?
Another good question. And so the way that I have been looking into the future, going back to the fall, was one of the reasons that we pursued some financing, some seller financing for the CIC, was to preserve as much of these capital that was freed up from Senate Bill 2417 as possible. And then we could decide over time, how do we actually spend all of that? So the way that I have put this together at this point is to say, well, that financing does give us the ability then to do this project, and we will carry that financing, for a few years, which of course has operational impact, but that is built into the budget starting next year in terms of funding that, and there are things in our recent past that are maturing, like the purchase of buses, where we did a large one-time purchase of buses. And so we made our final payment of that financing arrangement this fiscal year. And so that money is freed up for next fiscal year, which I'm kind of slotting that then against that financing of the CIC payments. So it's a little bit always of a Jenga puzzle that to put together, and that's kind of why I like to do what I do, to figure out how we can put things together.
This is the exact agility you were trying to achieve.
Yes, sir.
I was just, thanks, Ron, for that, because I was just thinking back a year when we tasked you with making sure we had maximum agility with all these projects and everything going on. And that was something that Ron brought up then that I think we are now seeing. That's exactly what's happening here, and that's and I agree with Todd. We're going to hear it from the community. We understand, I think that you have preserved the agility that we so very much now at this exact moment need, and I'm grateful for that.
Todd, to your question, the total project to demo and to demo all prior, to keep the 1988 edition, which does not include all of the internal, that's just the update, to update the 1988 portion, which is 10 total rooms, is $11,223,113 approximately. Obviously, that doesn't include everything else, and then that space would be, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rooms upstairs, 2 downstairs, and the cafeteria. So it's about $11.5 million before actually fixing it up. That's just to reestablish services.
And will we find any cost savings in the operation of this pod versus what we're paying to keep Grace Best running?
So the footprint is smaller, so there will be a lot less heating, and it's going to be a little bit more efficient than what we're seeing because of the age of the equipment. And so ideally, it's not going to be as efficient as a brand new system in a brand new stick-built building. It is much more efficient than what it's currently in.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out if there's any kind of ROI on this that helps ease the pain.
One thing we have discussed is that the facility could be utilized by community groups on the days that HSEA is not utilizing the building, but that would just be a potential for the future.
In our Homeschool Enrichment Academy families, I have confidence that this will be a program that will continue to grow. This is a particular situation where there's opportunity to rent out space. This is also, our students aren't widgets, and our Homeschool Enrichment Academy students and their families are not widgets. And we have talked about for a long time finding them a home that is the right home and a permanent home for them. So, for example, I'm opposed to even putting it on Bear Creek, because that is a space that feels more temporary, because that is a space that could someday serve more of our students. Obviously, we need to be good stewards of dollars, and obviously we need to be flexible, but we also need to make sure that we're putting our students first.
Oh, and that does fit with the vision that I've always had for that main campus. So where it can be something that's used for the community and for multi-purpose.
All right, and that could be, hopefully, Todd, a first step, at least maybe the multi-purpose room. First step towards that.
Any other thoughts or questions before we go into possible motion and debate? Since we've been kind of debating here.
I mean, we just have to make sure that we can answer that we have absolutely exhausted all other options and that this is really the most cost-effective way to approach this, and then, of course, and take care of that community. They have expressed that they have felt a bit neglected by us, and that's certainly the last thing I want to see from them, because I think we all value the homeschool program, and we want them to know that.
Absolutely so.
All right. No more, is there no more discussion? Mr. Schwartz? No? Okay. All right. Patty?
Mr. Schwartz is done.
What did he say?
Mr. Schwartz is my dad.
Gotcha.
No, I said Mr. Schwartz is done.
He's
It's
done.
done.
Okay.
You heard what you wanted to hear.
Okay.
Okay, President Upchurch, I would like to make a motion to authorize district administration to acquire a 10-room prefabricated facility and a separate multipurpose room through an appropriate RFP process to be placed at the D38 Central Complex adjacent to Big Red to open the fall of 2025 for a total project budget of $2.5 million.
Is there a second?
Well, I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Now that we've had lots of discussion, is there any more discussion?
Any discussion about the discussion?
Is there any discussion about the discussion? That's right.
And they did express that this will suit their needs and satisfy them.
Yes, they shared their letter, and they came and spoke to us, couple different parents, and we've heard from lots of parents and staff from the Homeschool Enrichment Academy community, and they're ready for us to make a decision and move on so they can have a home.
I understand
Todd.
that, and I just want to make sure we're not doing the bare minimum for them, that they're getting what they need, and
Agreed.
that this is closed out, we're done.
Todd, you're not here, but the crowd is pretty massive, and there's a lot of positive up and down head shakes. They're flowing out onto the street.
Well, we've got 1,000 of them here, and no, we don't. But this is what they're looking for. This is what they've asked us for, and Melissa and Brett have explained why and how we can do this for them, and I think we should vote.
All right.
All right.
Dr. Shank has called the question.
Well, they're nice, you guys.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown.
Oh, I don't want to be first, but I'm going to go with aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Dr. Shank.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye. And Mr. Brown, for the record, I'm sorry, you have to go first. It is actually by law that we have to do it alphabetically.
So I would change my name if I were you.
For the record, I like to say that's twice Mr. Brown went before me.
Okay, moving on to E3, consider approve J policy revisions, and this is the second reading. And I'll invite Mr. Rick Frampton back up to the podium. I suspect this will be pretty quick. And board, if you recall, this one had, most of the revisions are simply references to law and cross-references in policy. I think the only one I saw on there redlined was changing the word from shall to will.
That's correct. And I'm also excited to announce that the fiscal impact of this decision is exactly 0.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to consider and approve J policy revisions?
Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to move to approve revisions to student policies JB, JFAB, JH, and JHB as presented and recommended by the district administration.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And our last and final portion of Section E is approval of consent agenda.
Well, and if I may, real quick, before we jump onto that one, I just want to express to Brett, Melissa, and the team that definitely appreciate the due diligence in finding us the most efficient option here. So I know that it took a lot of work to try to figure out the best way to solve this problem.
Brett and Melissa, I don't know if you heard Mr. Brown. What he said is he wanted to express his appreciation for the due diligence you did in leaving no stone unturned as we requested and really working on this to find the best solution and to take care of our students and our homeschool families. And we can't forget about our other students that are in that building as well, our transition students and our robotics students. Thank you. That's what Mr. Brown said.
Thank you.
Okay, again, approval of consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I would like to move to approve the consent agenda as previously amended.
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, then Ms. Wood, would you take the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And just a reminder for those at home, we did, at the beginning of our meeting, amended the agenda, and item F5, student fees, was taken off of the consent agenda and tabled for another date. Okay. Finally, G, future agenda planning. As you can all see at the board, if there's anything that you want to make sure that we are covering, we have student-based funding discussion at our work session, policies for our B policies that we as a board have been working on. Please do your homework. We'll debrief our board community engagement for our May 1st Board of Education information session. And and we will also be discussing a proposal that was submitted to us from MA regarding Grace Best. And then at our regular monthly meeting, an update on safe and healthy schools, our superintendent vote, whoever that might be, and B policies first read, curriculum review, and PCAC FTC presentation. Anything else? All right, anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? All right, we're good. Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Todd, I'm going to hang up on you.